Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.
This podcast is brought to you by Patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Head there to check out exclusive podcasts like Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, and tons more.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where it's raining bits of early anthropoid. I'm one of your hosts, the irascible raptor, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today, as always.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and the future is not fixed, and my choices are my own.
Mm-hmm. And who is our special guest, the patron who picked this episode?
I'm Devin Hovarth, and I'm here to say that monkey is better than truck.
I agree. And this month's episode is all about the Beast Wars episode Code of Hero.
A deed once done cannot be undone. But perhaps it may yet be mitigated.
But I'm always saying that. I'm constantly saying that.
There's something about that, and this is getting way ahead of it, but something about seeing just a raptor cocking a gun while saying those lines is just amazing. That's the full breadth of the Beast Wars experience, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, so Devin, you know, you've been our premium patron for so long. We love all the great picks you've done. You did Berserk recently, but what drove you to pick Beast Wars Transformers, not Transformers Beast Wars? As I constantly write down because I think it should be Transformers first. But why did you pick this, Devin?
Well, I was born in 1989, and my older brother and cousin, for whatever reason, they were never exposed to the Transformers oeuvre that happened during the 80s. So I knew who the Ghostbusters were, I knew who the Ninja Turtles were, but I never really knew who Optimus Prime or Megatron were, so keep that in mind. I am not a G1, classic fan of that era. However, as I was growing up in 1996, I started seeing commercials for this cool new toy line called Beast Wars. And I was like, whoa, they're animals and they transform into robots. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever to me. So I got, very early on, a Rat Trap, a Warthog character who never showed up in the show, and Dinobot. And I looked at the back and I saw their little descriptions of their character traits and all that shit. And I was like, wow, this would make an awesome cartoon. When are they going to do that? Or why aren't they doing that? Or something like that. And I remember watching YTV, or the youth television up here in Canada, and they started advertising, or they mentioned anyway on the schedule, that a new show was coming up called Beasties. Wow, that sounds stupid.
Yeah,
what
terrible.
kind of a name is Beasties, I thought. And then, while I was hanging out with my unnamed older brother and cousin at the time, suddenly I look over to the TV one day and I see this CGI gorilla talking to a cat, and I'm thinking, wait, is this? And then he says, Cheetor, and I go, it's Beasties, or Beast Wars. What's going on here? Beasties is Beast Wars? What? Why is that?
They softened it for Canada, but finally you found your Beasties.
We Americans love war.
Yeah.
And as a future Canadian, I like hearing about the Youth Station and Teletoon.
Mm-hmm.
I have to pretend to know about these things when I meet other aging people like myself.
Someday you're going to learn all about SNIT.
Well, as you know, for me, I am the inverse of that. I was a Transformers fan as an 80s youth. If it was stratified, it goes Transformers, He-Man, and then below that, a bit was G.I. Joe. Like, I never particularly cared for the G.I. Joe cartoon. I think is actually a really good cartoon, but my childhood love, not into it. Toys to play with, Transformers G1 really appealed to me because it's like, well, I can have a plane and a robot. They're both things. That's cool. And of course, as a surly 13-year-old, I hear about they're changing it and it's now going to be a gorilla. I was the truck, not monkey person. And I looked down, especially when I first saw the first episodes of it, and a lot of scenes, and I was reminded of this. I rewatched the first 3 episodes as well, just to remind myself how it got started. A lot of scenes of just a gorilla and a rat and a cheetah just talking to each other. Like, they're not in their robot forms a bunch. And I was thinking, like, this is Transformers? Then, by the second season, my friend turned me onto it and said, like, no, this actually is a really fun show. And I, of course, was pulled in because they told me that it actually did connect to G1 storylines and was not just its own universe. And that's how they pulled in an old fan like me. And I did watch the remainder of the show.
As for me, I for whatever reason, this may confuse people because I'm just so macho, but I didn't watch any of the Action Boys cartoons, and I'm an elder millennial like Henry, so I never watched Transformers, I never watched He-Man, never watched Thundercats or G.I. Joe. The first thing that was close to that I loved was the real Ghostbusters. But for whatever reason, I think it was that I needed like more of an element of comedy in my action shows. So I loved real Ghostbusters. I loved Ninja Turtles, things like that. So I didn't know anything about Transformers outside of the fact that they were toys, and there was a big joke in Spaceballs about them when Mega Maid transforms at the end. Right. It's a Transformer! But this came on weekday mornings my first year of high school. And there was a big novelty in that there was, Reboot before this was a CGI animated show, and this was another one, but there weren't too many of these, so it was, enough of a novelty for me to watch before school started when I got up at some ungodly hour like 6:30. And I definitely got hooked on the show. I don't remember much about it, but I remember it being very dark. I remember the dialogue being very good, and I remember I was really hooked on the serialization of the stories. So I probably watched it all that first year of high school, and I felt great shame because I was still like, oh, should I still be watching cartoons? I love them, but I will be hated in this new school. But this is the only Transformers I ever liked or got into. I wasn't like buying toys or like going online to look up like articles about it or whatever, or interfacing with fans. I just watched it this weekday mornings my first year of high school.
Oh, man. See, that's so funny because, yeah, I was totally the opposite. I was a G1 believer. I still am of, like, Peter Cullen is my Optimus Prime. Like, that. There's a really great Optimus in this, but he's not Peter Cullen. I see him as, like, wow, the best stepdad. Peter Cullen. What a cool... But yeah, so I had to warm up to Beast Wars, as did many other like older Transformers fans. But I think they actually did. They pulled it off, and at least from an American standpoint too, I think that it and Reboot fell into the Toonami trench of like, well, it's not exactly anime, but it kind of isn't not anime. So if you're starting to get into Japanese cartoons on Toonami, well, a lot of those same voice actors are in this show, and you'll hear it'll sound the same too.
We up here in Canada are not afraid to tell serialized stories, unlike you cowardly Americans. Yes. Now, please don't put war in our cartoon names.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
While watching this episode for this podcast, I realized, a lot of the reason I liked it was because of this like flowery, faux Shakespearean dialogue said by dinosaur robots, like, "Forsooth, I detect a whiff of treachery in thine heart, Cheetor." It's just like they're always talking like this, and it's incredible. Like, I like when a premise this stupid takes itself so seriously, and I got some real whiffs of not just because of the animation style, but because of the dialogue. It really reminds me of Xavier Renegade Angel.
Yes, yeah. No, yeah, I didn't make that connection until now, but a lot of the scenes in here, which are meant to be played seriously, and I think done very well, of Dinobot talking about destiny. What does it have for us? Like, yes. Xavier Renegade Angel has the same speech every cartoon. Life, lessons, life.
Two things up front. This really reminded me of the Calvin and Hobbes comic where the premise is Calvin is playing a make-believe game and he came up with the idea of dinosaurs flying F-22s, but then he stops and he says, "This is too stupid." That's the premise of this show.
They never said it was too stupid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the other thing in my head, and maybe you'll cover this, Henry, is like this definitely would not have happened without the success of The Lion King.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
It and Jurassic Park, the 1-2 punch of those things. Yeah, that.
Oh, Jurassic Park, of course,
Yes,
that too.
Both of those come back very clear in the history I looked up. But yeah, but yes, why don't we go into the history of how did Beast Wars Transformers come to be? Well, I'm going to have to condense some stuff because we've not done a proper Transformers episode, and I promise we will. I think at one time I thought we'd do a G1 episode, but I kind of just want to skip to the movie because, like, G1 has some good episodes, like, not great, but good. But the movie's where it's at.
We still need to do Ninja Turtles. We haven't done that yet.
Well, we also, it's like everybody's covered those biggies of the 80s, so it's like it almost seems like too easy. We want to challenge ourselves with Bonkers and Bobby's World, that was. Well,
is there a rotten episode of that awful Netflix show about this cartoon yet?
There was a regular Transformers one, and I think Beast Wars gets like a few minutes in it, but not a true Beast Wars one, no.
Hope there are a lot of record scratches in that segment.
Oh, God, yes. The toys that made us eat.
Wait, you mean a truck, not monkey?
And so everybody liked it, right? They didn't.
Honk, honk.
No, yeah. The toys that made us is so good and bad. It's terrible.
To the people who like that show, I want to edit an episode of our podcast to make it like that and see how much they hate us immediately.
So, Bob, what do you think about this episode? Well, Henry, I didn't like it. But
what?
We need a soundboard, folks.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so this is a shorter version of the history of Vancouver's mainframe entertainment, which we covered a lot in our Reboot podcast. Listen to that if you want the long version of this. But short version is Mainframe was formed by a small group of mostly British people who got to start in early 80s CGI at the very earliest era of CGI. They did things, a lot of commercials, as well as the Money for Nothing music video. That's what made a couple of the founders of Mainframe very famous. But he left the studio that did that. As a Brit, he could move to British Columbia and set up in Vancouver for a bunch of like wonderful tax breaks. And so he built up a fledgling CGI studio in the early 90s in Vancouver, British Columbia.
The taxes are pretty good in Vancouver compared to California. I'm becoming one of those Joe Rogan, Elon Musk guys.
Oh, man, except instead of moving to Austin, you're moving to Vancouver.
So long, stink town. stink state.
But yeah, so Mainframe was built on the idea of like, we got this idea for the first CGI regular TV show, like 30-minute TV show. They came up with the idea for Reboot. They sold it to two different places, YTV in Canada and ABC in the United States. They paid for a 13-episode first season. ABC got bought by Disney and didn't want to pay for a second season, but YTV was ready to keep the money flowing to them. So Mainframe is working on the second season of Reboot in late 1995 when they get approached by toy maker Hasbro. Okay, now for the short version on Transformers history. All right. So, Transformers in the wonderful 80s, thanks to deregulation, cartoons could just be toy commercials in the United States. And
thanks, Ronald Reagan.
It was so good of Ronald Reagan to finally just let us see commercials that were toys and have all the toys talk to each other and show us how cool toys were. The first was Mattel's He-Man. It was a toy-tune combo that not only sold toys to kids, but also filled up TV with first-run programming of cartoons which syndicated networks really wanted. Then Hasbro, seeing that their competitor Mattel was doing so well, they wanted to get in on the same business. They started with a reboot rebranding of their old G.I. Joe line, which had been stopped because of the Vietnam War, partially for that. But Hasbro works with Marvel Comics and basically just hands Marvel Comics a box of toys and says, can you make up a story for this? They do, and in a funny turn of events, Marvel Comics gets fucked over by the bigger company on their creative work on this and get none of the credit, which is funny because normally it's Marvel doing that to somebody else, but it got done to Marvel.
Wait, this is how it feels? Man, we deserve this.
we deserve it. Jack Kirby was right. But then they just keep doing it for another 30 years.
Send his widow a ham.
I mean, you're saying this, Henry, and if you actually think about like the Transformers lore, especially the G1 lore, yeah, there is a lot of Jack Kirby in it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, the Autobots versus the Decepticons, that pretty much is the new gods. Like, Megatron is very Darkseid-esque. Optimus Prime is very Orion-esque, I want to say. And Unicron is just Galactus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the Marvel writers and editors who then the next year after G.I. Joe's success get handed disparate collective of Japanese transforming toys and were told, could you make this into a story? They then, I think the chief among them was editor Bob Badansky. They build this storyline. They pick which ones are the good guys and the bad guys. You start with a cool Japanese toy, which can be a robot and then a gun in some cases even, or even a dinosaur. There were some animals in the original Transformers line.
Someone pulled out the biggest toy and they were like, this is Orson Welles. Call him.
Well, and so Hasbro, that works with Marvel, they make up the storyline. And not only that, but also Marvel Productions, which we did a whole thing about in our Spider-Man The Amazing Friends one. They're hired to be the production company for it too, which really they're kind of the interim, like they hire the writers and the voice actors, and then they ship it over to Japan and Korea, who animate it. That starts in 84, peaks with a 1986 film. It is a huge hit. These Transformers are the hottest toy of, I think, 1985, but slowly but surely they start running out of steam. The movie peaks in 86. They make the truly insane, by today's standards, choice of, we need to replace all the old toys with new toys kids will buy, so kill all the old toys. Murder them on screen and make children watch it.
It was like the true dark ending of Toy Story 3.
It really, yes. Yeah.
What if they all got burned alive?
I am not lying, and I know this sounds lame as hell, but when you are a 6-year-old, and I was 6 when I finally watched a Transformers movie on TV in 1988. I was not in the theaters in 86. When I saw Optimus Prime died, I had never seen a fictional character die before. It did mess me up, getting ahead on here in Code of Hero, I bet they'd had a similar impact on kids then, too.
Oh, of course it did. Like, okay, bit of a spoiler. Well, Dinobot dies in this episode. Let's just get that out of the way first. Yes. This is an episode involving a death of a major character. And the thing that kind of pissed me off when I was a kid is that I heard about Dinobot dying before I saw the episode.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, what? He dies? Oh, that's lame. And I was really upset about that. But then I saw the episode and I was like, okay, he goes out in a cool way, thankfully. Which I did watch that Transformers movie. And yeah, Optimus Prime, he gets a decent ending. But a lot of the other characters, they just get fucking shot and dead like that.
They just get shot in the chest, smoke expels from their mouth, and they fall over. They're just dead.
It's like 80s toyetic Game of Thrones.
It really was. But after the film, they're still kind of chasing. They actually spend like the next couple seasons trying to fix the negative response to the film of like, oh, Optimus isn't dead, and some of these other guys are back too. But slowly but surely, they're running out of steam. By 1990, they kind of stop making new episodes, and the toys aren't selling as well. They're losing to the Turtles. After that, they're losing to Batman, and the X-Men are starting to take over. They're not making new episodes in the early 90s, but in 1992, they do kind of a soft relaunch, which is referred to by fans as the Generation 2 of the toys, though Gen 2 of the cartoon is more the second post movie. Gen 2 is a complicated thing, but anyway, but the important part is when they relaunched Gen 2 with some repackaged old toys, they slightly edited some of the 80s episodes, but insert at the start a CGI intro of Autobots and Decepticons fighting. Though not done by Mainframe, this does show that Hasbro was already seeing, like, we need to update this and get fancy. Like, kids want to see robots in CGI, like in this new thing called CGI.
And to be fair, if you're going to animate anything with CGI, robots do make sense.
Yeah. It's far more than living beings or, say, anthropoids. Like in this.
It's the Toy Story principle. You can't figure out humans yet, so you animate toys running around.
Exactly.
To relate back to this episode, we do see some quote-unquote humans in this episode, and they don't look good.
No.
Some great comedy comes out of the 3 living apes on this earth.
Yes, but Hasbro, they're losing to Marvel, they're losing to Batman. The mid-90s, they're also seeing like kids like trucks and stuff still. What kid doesn't like a truck or a plane? But by 1995, like Bob said, you got Lion King, you got Jurassic Park, you got the creepy crawlers with all these like bugs. Like kids want bugs,
This is the gross toy movement.
This is a gross toy movement. So instead of making trucks or tanks or stuff, or even they still are kind of trucks and tanks, especially in the Transmetal years, but at their core, kids want to own a T-Rex that's also a robot, or a gorilla that's also a robot, or a wasp that's also a robot. So they start redesigning these characters for a new set of toys. They dump the old version, and they're like, all right, we got these new toys. And so around 1995, Hasbro's looking for a partner to repeat what they did 10 years earlier. They got a toy line. They got a set of toys. They want somebody to animate it. But Marvel Productions doesn't work anymore, and they're already working with those Power Ranger guys with Saban. So they're not going to work with Hasbro anymore. Who do you go to? Well, Mainframe is finishing up season 2 of Reboot. They have shown that that they are able to produce reliable CGI television with characters. And so they go to Mainframe, and they say, any freelance capacity. Mainframe owns Reboot. They don't own a second of Beast Wars. It's all Hasbro's. But they want to hire them in a freelance capacity. 26 episode first season, which is double what they did each season on Reboot, with some estimates being $18 million for the full season, which is even more than they did for 2D animation. But it was expected. You know, the official making of that's on the DVD is absolutely made by Hasbro, and it's about how smart Hasbro executives are and how and Hasbro had all these great ideas. But it sounded like they were working on the toys with Takara, the Japanese designers, took them to Mainframe, and they kind of reworked them together to figure out how the CGI could fit as well as possible with the 3D models. But also a big thing Mainframe told them up front was, I know in 2D you had a whole lot of Transformers in there. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to cap this to 10 characters, and really far less than 10 in most episodes. Like Devin said, there were a lot of toys in that set that never appeared in the show because there was just no money to build that many CGI models in the show.
And honestly, that's good if you ask me, because look, I like G1 now. I wasn't a fan of it when I was, growing up. I was the opposite of you, Henry. I didn't like G1 growing up. I was Mr. That's old and dumb for old, dumb, boring people. But I will say, I think one of the problems that G1 still has is that there are a lot of superfluous characters in it, unfortunately. And compared to that, where I can be like, yeah, that's Rhinox, that's Rat Trap, that's Cheetor. I know who they all are. I don't gotta stop and wonder, okay, who's that guy again? What episodes was he in again? Did he have a character that was established at all? Whereas here it's no, we have a cast.
No, yeah, I think the reasoning that kept it lower, to keep the budget lower, ended up being much better for storytelling purposes in the series, even though it actually made it worse at advertising toys, I think, or at least in advertising as many toys as possible. It was a better deal for them. And so Mainframe and Takara kind of designed the characters together, though I think the toy guys had the main reasoning behind it. And it was decided, no more Autobots and Decepticons. We would have Maximals, which are the mainly mammalian good guys. And you had Predacons, mostly dinosaurs and bugs, as the bad guys. But I think they realized that kids love raptors, so a good guy needs to be a raptor, even though technically he shouldn't be with Maximals.
That's a very smart move. And it's made me realize, the reason I liked this show was because of animal characters. Now, I'm not a furry. I've never asked my wife to wear cat ears or a costume or anything like that. But for some reason, probably because I grew up on Disney cartoons, I'm the Drake meme when it comes to content where it's a premise with humans, no thanks. A premise with animal people, well, sure. So, or perhaps I was groomed by the Walt Disney Company to become a furry.
Perhaps so.
Hopefully all that shit will be over by the time this podcast goes live. But it's very funny to me.
You are Marge with the potato. But yes. The potato is a furry.
I just think they're neat. Yeah, much love to all my furry friends. I'm not going to go there with you, but I do like animal characters. It makes a premise more interesting to me because they're more fun to look at. I look at dumb humans every day. I look at my dumb human self in the mirror every day. Give me animal people.
Plus, animals are a good way of communicating what a characteristic is in a shorthand.
Yeah. No, if there are assumptions of what a T-Rex represents or a rat represents, and they can play off of that and build a character from there.
Or a noble ape.
A noble ape, yeah. And also apparently an early note Mainframe was giving the writers on the show was that you really need to limit the robot mode because it's easier for us to animate the animals talking as opposed to the robot mode. But by season 2, they kind of worked that out, and they're in robot mode a lot more. This didn't come up in my research, but I would think too, like, I had the reaction of like, I'm just watching a gorilla talk in here. I'm not watching Transformers. Like, I would think they heard that from some others too. But yeah, so it was mainly Hasbro's call who would be on the show and their characterization. And it was also very important for Hasbro that the characters look like their toys. That was very, very important. The main bridge in the creation of hiring Mainframe as well was that one of Mainframe's executive producers was Christopher Brow, a DiC veteran who worked on Teddy Ruxpin, which Hasbro owned, and he also was a executive producer on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. So that is how he knew the lead writers of the show and hired them, co-story editors Larry DiTillio and Bob Forward. So let's talk a little bit about these guys because the creators of the show are the toy makers, but they also are the creators of the show. Like, the stuff you care about story-wise is mainly these two guys. DiTillio and Forward, they met on He-Man. They worked on before Beast Wars, they worked on a ton of He-Man, She-Ra, a lot of DiC content. They were in the toy cartoon minds of the 80s. Larry DiTillio was a major force in He-Man and She-Ra, especially in his obituary in 2019. I'm sorry to say he has passed away. J. Michael Straczynski, who also wrote on those shows, he had nothing but great things to say about Larry DiTillio, said that it was him who defined so much of the Masters of the Universe and She-Ra mythology. Like, he was a big mythology guy and building in the universe and the rules of it. People actually still, even in that Kevin Smith run show of Netflix, it was pulling so much from what DiTillio built in the Motu cartoons, which he kind of got no credit for, again, because it was like, well, now Mattel owns it. He's just a writer boy and a freelance writer in Los Angeles. But Straczynski really liked his work, and when Straczynski hit it big with his Babylon 5 series, DiTillio wrote for that as well, and also wrote on Real Ghostbusters with JMS too. Like, he had nothing but great things to say about DiTillio. Bob Forward, he met DiTillio while working on He-Man. Bob Forward actually got to start in animation. He was a storyboarder, and I think he learned that he needed to get out of storyboarding because that's not respected at all, and that's not treated as actually writing by cartoon writers.
Still isn't.
Yep, it's very sad. But he transitioned more into the writing world and wasn't drawing as much. But after He-Man, he'd also worked in developing Captain Planet, and he was one of the co-lead writers on Savage Dragon, which we talked about on the podcast as well. And so the two of them worked together on He-Man, but didn't work together a ton, but they knew each other pretty well. So when it was time to hire a couple of toy cartoon veterans who could run a show, Bob Forward and DiTillio were instantly picked for that. So as Bob Forward mentioned it in one interview I found, he said that the way they split up the duties was DiTillio was much more of the world building guy, the rules guy, who also was like, oh, this will have 2 moons in it, and there's going to be a secret alien race that created all of this stuff, and time travel, all of this. While Bob was much more of the heart of the series, and he was more into the drama and the characters. Like, the Bob Forward talked about how, thanks to the rules of how few characters they could have on the show, it was kind of a glass box, he said. He's like, you have 5 places they can go, and you have 10 characters that can talk. So they're going to have to bicker a lot. And there's going to be a lot of like changing allegiances and people doubting each other just to fill time with the limited range of characters they have.
The sets are very defined in the show. You could tell they just built the sets for them to dance around on. And one thing about Bob Forward is that He is also the writer of every episode of the Legend of Zelda cartoon.
Right.
And he was interviewed by the Super Mario Brothers Super Show podcast. I think it's now just called the Hard Drive Podcast. They talked to him. One thing about his episodes of Zelda, well, the Zelda cartoon, not just because the bar was set so low by the Mario cartoon, the Zelda cartoon was as good as it could have been. And it was like the thing you look forward to on Friday, because Monday through Thursday, bad Mario cartoons. On Friday, good Zelda cartoon, as good as it could be. Also very, very horny.
Yes,
it's a horny show.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, isn't Rat Trap in this cartoon just Link from that cartoon?
Yeah, you know,
He's not stealing any Steve Martin catchphrases though.
True.
But, you know, this, I do think Bob Forward brought the horniness to this show, too. The episode that precedes the Code of Hero is like a romantic comedy, action comedy between Black Arachnia and Tigertron. What's the...
No, Silverbolt.
Silverbolt, sorry.
Yeah, Silverbolt. I love Silverbolt. I love their relationship, actually. He was the one who introduced a lot of girls growing up to himbos.
Yes, he's fun, and Black Arachnia as usually the Smurfette of the show. Like another girl shows up, but she doesn't do much. Air race. Yeah. But
one thing about the Legend of Zelda cartoon, sorry, everyone should watch this. It's on YouTube. It's called The Legend of Beavis. And what they do is they take an entire Zelda cartoon and they put Beavis's voice in the place of Link's. And it works perfectly. It's not some guy doing Beavis. It's existing Beavis sound clips. It's amazing. That's all I have to say. Sorry for derailing. I just remembered that.
You foolish boy. You will never get the Triforce from me. Shut up, Butt Munch.
It works. So Bob Forward was also very clear in his interviews of like, you know, when we got hired to this, we didn't know nothing about Transformers history. We didn't care. Well, not that they didn't care, but they didn't do a ton of studying. What they were very clear of, as I found some old, like, 1997 AOL Instant Messenger chats with him.
Ooh, AOL keyword Transformers?
It was, or on the alt.transformers, whatever, community. He was pretty clear of like, guys, I'm a freelancer. Like, if you say, hey, shouldn't you put this character in here? I have no call in this, and Hasbro hasn't hired me for season 2 yet, guys. Give me a fucking break. Like, he was at least very clear to people of, just because I'm the story editor doesn't mean I have any kind of power you assume I have. But also, when they were fairly new to Transformers, they actually did work closely and ask a lot of the online fans at the time of like, hey, we're doing an episode with Starscream. What would Starscream do? What is Unicron? How did Starscream die? And as they would build in more connection to the classic Transformers into the show, they definitely, in the pre-Wikipedia days, worked a lot offline, unpaid, with the super fans of Transformers to get answers. So they did care a lot more than they had to on building the world of Beast Wars.
It's very awesome that they did that, if you ask me. And it especially shows that, it's just always nice to see creators go that extra mile to at least be respectful to the fans in that respect.
Yeah. I think caring that much, but also I think Forward as well, though, I think in 98 stopped being involved in that because somebody like pretended to be him, and there were some bad fans that caused him to pull back a little bit from his game. And though, like, there's a million of like interviews with them and just other Transformers fans. Like, they, to this date, Forward is very giving with the fans and giving, and DiTilio was prior to his untimely passing in 2019.
I like being open to fan feedback, but there's a limit because now all entertainment is just customer service. It's like, what do you want Spider-Man to do in this movie? Does he have any friends you want him to meet? Let us know. Call this hotline. Henry has no comments on that.
Hey, I can't.
He's dialing the Spider-Man hotline every day.
They need to listen. I am the nuts and gum man they're listening to on this.
It's true.
Someday I won't be, but I've been afraid to watch. I haven't rewatched No Way Home yet because I've heard people mention not only is the blue screen I really enjoyed No Way Home. I did a whole podcast about it with Matt McMuscles, but I have been afraid that one, the blue screen will be so obvious on my TV that I won't be able to pay attention, and that they have so many silences in the movie that are built around audience cheers that if you're at home and you're not hearing an audience cheer, it just seems kind of awkward, the silence, and it doesn't work as well. But
I never even thought of that. Wow.
I think Henry likes cheering for any guy named Garfield. He just wants to see a Garfield succeed.
You would think Andrew Garfield would be my favorite Spider-Man, but he is not. No, but
more of a Toby head?
Well, Toby was my first, but I honestly do think of live-action Spider-Mans, Tom Holland is the best. He is. Even though, yes, my childhood is Toby. I'm basically the same age as Toby. Well, slightly younger, but anyway. So yeah, the Transformers, though, they were working a lot with the fans, and I think that did help them deal with the fan backlash and endure themselves to the older Transformers fans too over time, which, again, this was technically toys for children. They didn't need to appeal to like the 21-year-olds who were online and were very serious about that Unicron wouldn't have done that, done X or Y, and they needed to change that. But yes, so over time in season 1, you can see them slowly developing an increasingly dense mythology, forward jokes about how like they built 2 moons in the sky because they weren't sure what the planet was they landed on. And then they decided, no, this planet is Earth in the past. They time traveled and we got to blow up that second moon. And they're like, wow, that actually worked out. That accidentally worked out really great for us with a really cool storyline of blowing up the moon and having that be like a weapon of a third enemy in this entire series. They could roll with the punches like that, Titilio and him. But also, yes, the show was a syndicated show in the U.S. too, which meant they could kind of break more rules than if they were on regular TV, like, and be way more. This episode is way more violent than they could have got away with if it was on Kids WB.
Oh my God, I was shocked by. I mean, I know it's robots, but there's like a strangling. There's a gun just shoved in someone's face. A robot is just like cut through the torso.
Yes, yeah.
There's what looks like a potential ritual suicide happening in the beginning.
Yes, yep. It's intense. Well, also this show was really built around heavy cliffhangers like that. I think that was another thing that really got me into the show. Like I think a friend showed me the season 1 cliffhanger where clearly Optimus Primal explodes. Like he's dead, like just kaboom. And the season 2 cliffhanger, that did get me to stick around for season 3. Because when I saw that, the spoilers, if you haven't watched the show, the time stream changes and Megatron just goes like, you do not exist. Like, I was just, what the how do you undo this in the next season? It was crazy.
Oh, come on. Optimus Prime has died before and he's come back fine.
It's really funny how executives just forbade anyone from making serialized television. They thought people are too stupid to follow a story. They're dumb. You want to run this in any order. And now that's mandatory.
Yeah.
You can't make episodic television if you want to.
The Cuphead show seems kind of special in that it's like, no, it's just like goofy adventures. There's no overarching storyline or nothing, which is kind of rare these days. Yes.
I mean, I will say, I think this show was actually my introduction to serialized storytelling, because I distinctly remember the first time I was like exposed to it was an episode of this, and it was Tigertron talking to like the Maximals, and he was going like, this island has a secret weapon inside of it, and Megatron is going to try and take it. And if he gets it, he'll win the Beast Wars. To be continued.
Yeah. No, the power of it to be continued was so big to me on just like an episode of Darkwing Duck. There's like 2 Darkwing Duck 2-parters ever that really got me, but usually you never even got a 2-parter. And then once the 2-parter was resolved, it had no impact on it. And season 1 has a bit of this, like definitely you could watch some episodes out of order, but really season 1 of Beast Wars follows a certain path. But season 2 and 3, you gotta watch in order. Like new characters arrive and then their story continues to the next one. Like in this episode, I had to remind myself like, right, Rampage, his spark, that was the previous episode. They were fighting over that spark. Like, in which I am really surprised Hasbro was cool with that. Like you would think that the Hasbro people would have said this would, like Bob said, this confuses dumb children. They won't buy toys. Stop doing this. But I don't have an answer to this from my research, but it could just be Hasbro's like, whatever. If you pump out the episodes, then you did it. Like, get it out the door. Though certainly in the 2008 documentary that's on the DVD, Hasbro's like, we're so proud of the story. Like, it's the stories that really get people to care about the toys. Like, they seem very interested in the stories now, for sure.
It definitely feels like they gave them a lot of freedom, but I will also say, if the ending of season 3 and also Beast Machines is anything to go by, maybe they got a bit too much freedom. I'm not a fan of how this series ends, or Beast Machines for that matter.
We'll get to that, but yeah, yes, I am with you, Devin. I agree, but DiTilio also, I believe to a lot of Transformers fans, they credit DiTilio as one of the chief people who defined the idea of the spark or the soul of a Transformer. And a lot of other, like, obviously there's a ton of lore in the G1 world in the original cartoons and the comics that Marvel did as well, not to mention on the back of the toys. But a lot of the world of Cybertron, the idea of Spark, and a lot of the like military ranking stuff that is in this show too, it was more built in Beast Wars than Transformers, and kind of then folded into future Transformers stuff with Autobots and Decepticons that you think, oh, this was always part of Autobots and Decepticons, when it was kind of more set up in Maximals and Predacons.
The Transformers fandom does seem to be one of the strangely cooler fandoms online anyway. Like, the Transformers wiki is very entertaining from just, like, browsing it. And also, they seem to be one of the more strangely progressive fandoms, but that might just be because at some point, even early on in the series, you do have to address, why do these genderless machines have clearly coded women and men?
Yes, yeah. It's and why was there no woman until the movie and one girl toy? We've had on a guest, a paid Transformers creator on previous podcasts, and they talked about there are some intense fans and a lot of good fans. It's a mix, but I did note going to the Transformers wiki, the tfwiki.net. Yeah, it's more fun than most wikis, though there is some like extreme editorializing at times, and I'm like, well, okay, guys, I know you hated this translation in Japanese, but maybe I don't need to know all of this. Also credited writers on the series too, that beyond DiTilio and Bob Forward, include genre legends like DC Fontana, one of the first women to write in televised science fiction on Star Trek. You got Christy Marks, the co-creator of Gem and the Holograms, and you got Marv Wolfman, one of the most important comic writers of the last 40, 50 years. Like, I love that Wolfman. I got to interview him once.
He is a beast.
Nice. Yes, yeah, he's the guy who killed Supergirl and the Flash.
Wow.
And lived to tell the tale.
By the light of a full moon.
But that style also, I think, meshed really well with Mainframe, because as we talked about in Reboot loved to just take a scene from a movie and just do it.
Yeah, with like really primitive CGI models.
Yeah, they're like, oh, what if we put that scene from Jurassic Park in here? What if we put that scene from Terminator 2 in here, or Evil Dead? And there's a good deal of that in, not as much as Reboot, but it's still there in Beast Wars, and there is a real sense of humor in Beast Wars that is not overdone. It doesn't make me go like, stop with these jokes. But I think they have fun. It's not too much, though. I don't know how you feel about the comedy in the series, Devin.
Oh, I love the comedy in the series. I definitely remember, it's not really a comedic scene, but I definitely remember one of my favorite scenes of this was the start of season 2, where they basically do a Good, the Bad, and the Ugly parody, or like a Mexican standoff parody, where it's like, the classic music plays with the trumpets and the silent maracas, and they just stare each other down, draw their guns, cut to be continued.
Yeah, they, just like with Reboot, the Mainframe and its animators were punching above their weight class. Their ambitions came through more than their tech could allow in 1997. But I also, just like with Reboot, between each season you could see like, oh, they got better tools. They upgraded the look of the characters and the machinery making them.
Also meant to be watched on a fuzzy SDTV. This
Also
looks
that.
much different in the harsh light of 4K, shining on every model.
Actually, I was just going to say another joke that I just remembered now. One of my favorite jokes in the series in general was when Rat Trap was talking to Silverbolt and being like, hey, when we go back to Cybertron, I know this great place. The waitresses there walk around with their chassis out, or they don't have their chassis on, and Silverbolt is just like, yes, thank you. Sounds like a wonderful place to go.
Kids love the Hooters reference.
Oh, man, that's good. Yeah, that's, but Bob Forward, though, in contemporary interviews when the series was out, even he was like, look, Mainframe sees this as their B show. They don't own it. They put their top guys on Reboot, and we're doing our best on Transformers. But, and yeah, he was the one who coined the glass box idea of like, we are very limited. So many original Transformers cartoon episodes are, a new Transformer arrives. Well, how will they deal with that? You can't really do that all the time on this show. Like that's why they make it an event. So many episodes are like another Maximal is falling from the sky. We got to get to his pod before the other guy does, because it's actually a big ass deal when a new toy arrives from the sky to play.
He's got a new hat.
Which again, I think it kind of added to the show's, power, and even I think that may have even added to the toy sales. So it's like, oh my god, new toys being introduced, new characters being introduced, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they learned, and another important lesson I think Mainframe and the producers learned is that with this kind of animation that limits your cast and limits movements and places you can go, you really, 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 really need a good voice cast. And they did get a really great voice cast for this show, just like on Reboot. Even though they are all non-union Vancouver folks, they are doing great work. They should be paid what the LA people are. They earned it, but
hey, LA people need to buy their health insurance.
I guess that's the trade-off. Sure. But yeah, all right. Let's talk about this cast, because it's seriously, they're great. I'm not going to name everybody, but we got Larry Chalk as Optimus Primal. We just talked about him some in our Sonic Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, because he's Grounder in that, the big stupid idiot.
Oh, that's him. Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
But Gary Chalk normally doesn't play big stupid idiots. He normally plays guys like Optimus Primal, police chiefs, generals, admirals. He's in the first Sonic movie as a NATO chief, going well, this guy's really fast. Can we find he's just good at playing a leadership role kind of guy, which he brings all of that to Optimus. But
they filmed that movie in Vancouver, right?
Of course they did.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Of course they did.
but Gary Chalk brings all of that to Optimus. But his Optimus is of a style with Peter Cullen, though Chalk has said that he didn't watch Peter Cullen's performance of Optimus Prime until after he started recording the role. But certainly I think he got cast because he has a similar timbre to his voice that Peter Cullen has for him, and they both bring kind of a military feel to the character, but the nice general who says things like, I would never ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself, rat trap.
I will say, I think Peter Cullen is the better Optimus than Gary Chalk, ultimately. I do. Gary Chalk is, of course, my childhood Optimus, but yeah, Peter Cullen just has the much more distinguished, come, Autobots, let's roll out. Just hearing that from Peter Cullen, yeah, I get it. I get why he is the definitive Optimus.
As long as Peter Cullen is able to do Optimus Prime, I want him to do it. I don't want other people to do it. But if you're going to cheap out and go with Vancouver actors, then it should be Gary Chalk.
Also, no one can sound like Peter Cullen anymore. No one's just breathing in lead fumes all day like these old timers.
Yeah. But the hero is never as good without a great villain, and that would be David Kaye as Megatron. Holy crap, he's the best in this show. I love him so much in this.
He is my favorite Megatron, period. No dissing Frank Welker. He's great. He's been at this longer than I've been alive. But David Kaye is he's perfect for this kind of show, because he can go from being, slightly foppish and slightly arrogant and slightly over the top to being menacing at a drop of a hat.
He's a real sideshow Bob on this show.
Yeah.
That's what I got real Bob vibes from him.
Now?
See, that's not what Welker brings to Megatron. Megatron is played very the Megatron of Welker is kind of one note. He's just bossing people around oh, please, Starscream, shut up. Starscream gets to have all the fun in original Transformers. This kind of just melds those two into one character. He's his own sassy. He even goes oh, well, why don't you tell me what to do if you think you should be the leader?
Yeah, and honestly, that's why Pterosaur doesn't work in this show compared to Starscream. Because, yes, they kill off Pterosaur in the start of season 2, and honestly, that's for the best, because Starscream is not needed for this show when you have David Kaye.
Yeah, he's so great. He's just so fun and silly. And the animators, you can tell, just love animating. We're yes. Even in dinosaur form, when he acts so. There's a hilarious scene in this episode where it's this could be played in him in robot form, but it's way funnier when he's the T-Rex doing this scene. And David Kaye, most famous for being Clank in the Ratchet and Clank series, which a completely different character from Megatron. I just played Riffs Apart, and he's so good at Clank. He is like, he brings so much soul to this very simple character who oftentimes is just having to say like, oh dear, I don't know. Like, he's so good at it.
He's a more masculine C-3PO.
Yeah, but not too mad. He's still pretty, he brings a little foppishness to every character, I'd say. And crazy, he plays Optimus in the 07 cartoon. So he's been both sides of the coin. He's been Optimus and Megatron. Also, in other series we covered, he was Professor Xavier in X-Men Evolution and Treze in Gundam Wing.
And speaking of X-Men Evolution and Gundam Wing, Scott McNeil.
Yes, yeah.
He is 3 characters. 4, actually. He is Waspinator, he is Dinobot, he is Rat Trap, and he's Silverbolt.
That's and they constantly have conversations with themselves all the time, and yet he makes it work perfectly. Like there's up until this episode, many episodes depend on Rat Trap and Dinobot having entertaining arguments, and he makes them work so very well because Scott McNeil, is one of the best voice actors of his generation who unfortunately like has to deal with a bunch of dub bullshit. Well, look, I don't want to degrade dubbing, but it also is why he's not as rich as he should be. I will say that. Like he's a superstar. He's so good. He
definitely deserves to be in like more high profile cartoons. I'll agree with that.
And but in stuff we've covered, he was Duo in Gundam Wing. He was the first Piccolo. Well, I mean, first English Piccolo.
He's actually Piccolo Jr.
Sorry, yes, you are correct. And also Wolverine in X-Men Evolutions, which again, he's my second favorite Wolverine to Steve Blum. I think he's that's my preferred Wolverine voice actor, but he's second best. I actually like Scott McNeil more than my childhood Wolverine, which is now I forget even the actor's name, but from the Saban 92 show, a Toronto actor. But yeah, I mean, Scott McNeil, he rules. This is his tour de force as Dinobot and Rat Trap in this episode, too. Also, we've got Ian James Cordlett as Cheetor. He was Coconuts, that very annoying character on Adventures of Sonic, and the first Canadian Goku as well. So these two guys yelling at each other and screaming at each other a ton in the first Ocean dub of Dragon Ball.
He an Ed, Ed, and Eddie?
Yeah, he's an Ed, Ed, and Eddie guy, too. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah. We also have Venus Terzo as Black Arachnia, the lead female voice actor on the show. She played Jean Grey on X-Men Evolution and was the first Ranma girl type in the Ranma 1/2 dub. Venus Terzo is another of my favorite. Like, once I heard Black Arachnia on the show, that also pulled me towards it because I really just love her very, like, kind of specifically gruff Vancouver accent. I don't know. There's something, I really like Terzo's voice in the show. And there's a lot of other great voice actors too, but I want to focus on the main ones there. And composer on the show, Robert Buckley, also wrote the music for Reboot as well. Definitely has the same feel musically as Reboot. Like, sometimes for good and not so good. The theme song's okay.
I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, it's your generic 90s, rock ballad, and then you scream the title.
Yes.
Which, yes, they did in fact also scream Beasties up here in Canada instead of Beast Wars.
Boy, that's even worse. Jesus.
Yeah, it sounded stupid, trust me. Just watching and going, Beasties! And you're like, what?
I needed like a catchy riff in this theme song.
Yeah. Well, see, you and me were raised on, you can say a lot of negative things about Haim Saban, but he knew that you needed a good song to catch a dumb kid's brain. I was like, and even that goes to original Transformers, more than meets the eye. Transformers, kids are able to explain Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles conceptually forever because the song told you.
Yeah. Even Big Bad Beetleborgs had a good song.
Yeah.
That show sucks.
Or the previously covered with Devin, Digimon American theme. Digimon
right.
Monster. Yeah.
It tells you everything you need to know about Digimon.
One other person credited on the show I want to spotlight before we get into the episode itself is Clyde Klotz. He is the production designer of the show who won the series' only Emmy. If Beast Wars Transformers is an Emmy-winning show, a daytime Emmy for production design. He did similar work on Reboot and was an assistant director on a lot of shows filmed in Vancouver as well. And that includes X-Files, and I mention that because from 1994 to 1997, Clyde was the husband of Gillian Anderson and the father to her first kid. I've looked at pictures of them. He was a very lucky man, a very, very lucky man.
Hachi Machi.
Yeah. No, he's in it. I don't want to say he's not attractive, but he certainly is not on the level of Gillian Anderson, but yes. So, all right, we got the first season. Toys are a hit. First season's a hit. Apparently, Hasbro was kind of slow to renew because it was going to be a big money thing. And Bob Forward at the time also alleged that it was because Hasbro/Kenner was investing a whole lot of money in Phantom Menace in 1998 and wasn't sure if they wanted to make the same commitment to Transformers, Beast Wars as they were to all the Star Wars stuff. But eventually they did commit to a 13-episode second season and got back Forward into Tilio for that. They made a few little changes, added some more toys, redesigned most of the main guys so you could sell kids a new Megatron and Optimus and Rat Trap in the next season.
That's why when I was trying to find the names of these things, I was like, well, this says this is Optimus Primal, but it doesn't look like him at all.
Yep, yeah.
That's a better thing to do than killing them off and just replacing them with new characters. Looking at you, movie. There's a reason why the main villain in this show calls himself Megatron and not Galvatron.
Exactly, yes. Just call, at least, and I love that he's like, you know what? I'm going to lead these evil guys, and I'm going to call myself Megatron, named after, like, he's like, I'm Hitler too, and I'm going to lead this. And so, yes, the second season debuts in the fall of 1997, ends on a brutal cliffhanger that then resumes for a third and final season that Mainframe would also animate and release starting at the fall of 1998. And like Reboot as well, around the same time, it also got into a sort of in-canon PlayStation video game as well that Mainframe kind of shared their character models with, though obviously had to be shaved down a lot for the PlayStation. And also, concurrently along with the show, in Japan, there were two 2D animated Beast Wars shows that aired around the same time that took the same characters, but is not in canon for the American side of it. But if you really want more Beast Wars and want to see a lot more of the toys and different models, you can watch the Beast Wars Japanese series, 2 seasons of it, animated by Ashi Pro.
I kind of looked at that series a bit, actually, and I think the problem is, in America anyway, I think the perception is that Transformers is for a 10 to 12-year-old audience, whereas in Japan, I think the idea is that Transformers is intended for like a 5 to 10 audience. Like, I don't know what it is, but in Japan, Transformers seems to be geared towards a much younger audience, and it kind of shows.
Yeah, I've heard that before with other when I watched some of the Japanese G1 episodes as well, it seemed more on the child side, even more childlike than the American G1 series. Yeah. But, and so, yes, there were a lot of twists and turns over the season, like allegiances change, characters die and do not come back, though sort of Dinobot comes back, but not really. But
he comes back for like half an episode, okay?
Yeah. But then the third season is capped off with a happy ending for everybody. Well, not everybody. And I believe only of the many Transformers that appear in this series, 8 survive by the final episode, which that's a pretty high body count for a kid's cartoon.
Yeah. Okay, so Tigertron and Air get combined by evil aliens, and then they die, even though they just appear for like one episode. They come back combined for one episode, and then they die like the episode immediately after that. Friggin' Depth Charge and Rampage get killed. Yeah, they all basically get murked, except for Waspinator, who ironically is the only Predacon to get out of it unscathed.
I love that. Waspinator is so funny as the butt of every joke who gets exploded all the time. Why, Waspinator?
Waspinator doesn't want to die.
Yes, yeah, he's a very funny guy. So yeah, everything's happy at the end of this the 52 episode run, and they get to the full strip amount, so it can be, put on syndication forever. Where do you go from there? Well, it's funny that the show had a negative truck not monkey response at first, and then got back a lot of those fans, so not all of them, and then it gets renewed for more episodes that are going to debut on Fox Kids, but they flush kind of everything away and they hire back the voice actors and mainframe, but not the writers. They get an entirely new writing staff and reset everything for a series called Beast Machines.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Now that you mentioned that the writers weren't brought back.
Yep, yeah, which, like, I don't know. I can see Detilio and Forward go like, I don't want to work another 3 years on more Transformers. I'm good, guys. But
just from being on the internet for 25 plus years, I know everyone hates Beast Machines.
Yeah.
That's one fact I know.
I mean, it looks better, and I have definitely seen that there are some fans who say, give Beast Machines a chance as its own thing, guys. But it flushes away everything, and the anime start with like, well, we've all got amnesia because the writers need like most of this first season to figure out how they even ended up here from the last season.
And like, there's just like, okay, so they do this weird thing where the series is about like technology versus organic life, which that's an idea for this series, I guess. But then they kind of turn Megatron into like this weird techno-fascist who was like, no, I've abandoned my beast form entirely. I hate beast forms. Beast forms suck. I don't want any organic life on this planet at all. And it's like, you weren't like this before. You didn't give a shit about your beast form. Hell, you kind of liked it.
He was radicalized online. That's what happened to him.
I mean, he is a digital being, and it's I guess he did get too.
I've been reading some articles lately.
But
I've been listening to a podcast by Cybertronian Joe Row Truck.
but yeah. So, but the legacy of Beast Wars is longer than you would think at first. You know, they kind of went back to the Autobots and Decepticons after Beast Machines. And of course, then by 2007, the Bay era begins for Transformers. And even the cartoons that the Bay Area kind of pisses gasoline all over, they still, even the cartoons are like, no, it's back to trucks now. We're doing trucks. And also same cast. Like, they get rid of the Vancouver cast and go back to mainly Peter Cullen or a LA-based people. But Beast Wars does have a longer tail than they expected for it. I also think that it is, some online meme historians say that it is the source of why people say, I'm going beast mode, is calls back to this. Like, I believe it was mainly used for some popular NFL players say I'm going beast mode and popularized it, but some meme historians are like, no, it goes back to Transformers. And it got put on DVDs in the aughts that became fairly rare, but they're all on YouTube at this very moment. But of course, Beast Wars nostalgia is at an all-time high and about to get even higher because not only did the Beast Wars appear in the Netflix Super Cybertron show that's been going on, spoilers for the last season of the Netflix show, but they do a Spider-Verse and they bring together all these different timelines, and that includes the Predacons and Maximals, though not with the Vancouver voices. But also, the Bayformers has now gone so far that, like, you know what? The next movie should have the Beast Wars guys in it. Those people now get their own movie in live action. So the sequel to Bumblebee, I believe, is called Rise of the Beast, or that's the plan right now. It comes out next year. So the Beast Wars universe could be bigger than ever very soon, thanks to the upcoming live action movie that's coming out.
The only thing I know about the Bayformers that I bothered to retain at all is that he hated T.J. Miller so much he just killed off his character right in the middle of production.
You're warming me up to this Michael Bay guy.
He was first at the table for hating T.J. Miller.
Michael Bay's got a new movie coming out now, and now everybody loves Michael Bay because they're like, oh, this is the type of movie they don't make anymore. It's a mid-range blockbuster that's not based on anything. It's a white guy, black guy, buddy cop action thing in an ambulance with real explosions, and everybody's like, wow, Michael Bay, bringing back the movies.
Ambulance.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but I can't believe that, like, his Transformers movies in a pre-Marvel world were seen as the lowest of the low and the worst thing in film, and now it's turned around that, like, people are welcoming a new Michael Bay film. It's crazy how time flies.
People want a brainless action thriller that's not like a marketing plan for something larger, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that Yahya Abdul-Mateen the second. He's on a rocket he's on a rocket ride to the moon. Everybody's loving this guy now. He's great. I loved him, man. But yes, meanwhile, what's been going on, just as a small update from our Reboot podcast, Mainframe is now the name of the company again. They stopped calling themselves Mainframe. Then after we did the Reboot podcast, the company reorganized, like, we should just be called Mainframe. Everybody just calls us Mainframe.
Let's make these podcast guys wrong about something else.
and yeah, Mainframe, they've really come up in the world. Like, they are like when DreamWorks wants to make a TV show, like, say, Madagascar Babies, they hire Mainframe to do it. And Mainframe still, every year, without fail, they make a Barbie animated feature. Like, they have been the Barbie cartoon factory for 20 plus years. It's crazy how long they've been.
They also
doing
made the Ratchet and Clank movie,
which looks good.
Oh, they made that.
Yeah,
okay.
Mainframe was the main animation studio for that. Yeah.
God, that movie came out so late.
Too late for Ratchet and Clank, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And then meanwhile, the Halo show just started now. Like when, but anywho, all right. Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we will talk about Code of Hero.
We'll be right back.
Gigantic Gorilla Optimus Primal transforms with double cannons firing. T-Rex Megatron transforms with pulverizing claw and twin missile launchers. Each sold separately. New Transmetals 2. Beast with toughness ×2.
Cybershark is a bite that ignites. When he changes, Maximals! He'll still blow you out of the water. Dinobot's gonna whip your robot. Transformers.
New Transmetals 2. Each sold separately.
Welcome to the break, everybody. It's Henry Giller, and I hope you are maximized by this week's podcast.
Hey, everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and if you prick a Dinobot, does he not bleed?
And a big thank you to our premium patron for this month's episode, Devin. They picked out a great episode of Beast Wars, and it let us dive into the world of Transformers. And we can only do cool stuff like this thanks to the support of some people like Devin and also the many, many other Patreon subscribers at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
That's right. If you want to support our shows and get over 100 full-length bonus episodes, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Sign up there. For $5 a month, you'll get to hear all of our bonus content from the past 5 years of the Patreon. That includes podcasts about shows like Mission Hill and Batman the Animated Series and Futurama and The Critic and King of the Hill. And then you'll also get regular monthly access to our new episodes of both Talking Futurama, Talking the Hill, and whatever our fall miniseries will be. That is to be determined. And that's all behind the $5 paywall, only at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And there is a $10 level as well. When you sign up for that, you get all the $5 stuff naturally, but also access to one Megalon podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you're subscribing to this on the free feed, each month you see the preview of it, but you can only hear the full thing if you go to that $10 premium level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. It gets you all the $5 stuff, and then you get a monthly installment of What a Cartoon Movie, which honestly is at least 5 hours long these days. We have done some great stuff this year. We have almost hit the 4-year mark on just doing What a Cartoon Movies, and this year we have covered last month's The Little Mermaid. This month, we're doing Beauty and the Beast, sure to be a super in-depth thing there. We did 2 of our longest ever, 6 hours about Toy Story 3, 6.5 hours about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and a huge back catalog as well about things like South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, Millennium Actress, a Goofy movie, Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, Beavis and Butthead to America. We cover everything there, very, very in-depth. We are the only podcasters out there, I say, who could give equal credence to talking about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and End of Evangelion. No one else can do it on our level. And you can only hear the full podcast if you sign up at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. That $10 a month will get you, I'd say, an additional 270 hours of What a Cartoon Movie podcast and all that other stuff. One more time, that's patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it is so easy to do. And once you sign up, you're given a code. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And that way you can download all of our bonus podcasts alongside our free podcast as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And there is a Patreon app for any smart device you might have. You can download that to get our bonus content that way. But either way you do it, it is so easy to access all the content waiting for you at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And now let's get back to our rest of our talk about Beast Wars, and the rest is silence.
All next week at 5:30, Johnny Quest packs his bags.
What gives?
And Tanani goes to war.
We've got a full-scale threat attack.
Open fire! For 1 week only. To your stations, quickly. Beast Wars. All next week at 5:30. Transformers Time Style. Only on Toonami.
Proximity alert. Proximity alert. Flash.
We're back.
All right, and we are back, and you just got to hear the wonderful nondescript theme song of this series with its one lyric, Beast Wars.
You know, I watched...
You didn't use the Canadian one?
Oh, well, all right. I'll drop that in here.
Me beasties.
Yeah, beasties.
Well,
Beasties.
I watched this intro like 3 times, and I was thinking, are these clips or are they trying to tell me something? But every time I lost my train of thought every time someone was like, Beast Wars! wait, I'm trying to figure things out. Stop shouting at me.
All these floating heads really can... I have to think some people turned off their TVs when they see the strobe effect over a gorilla at the start of this. Like, it's a real turnoff to look at. Well, let's talk about who wrote this episode. Ian Weir. This episode is viewed among the fandom as the best in the series and a truly classic episode of Transformers. And
there's a reason I picked this one.
If you picked any other, people would just be saying, like, why didn't you pick Code of Hero? What the fuck, man? Yeah.
I mean, the one immediately after this is also a pretty standout one that a lot of people remember because it's about eugenics, kind of. But yeah, this one had to be the one.
Or also, like, there are some great, like, actiony ones. And the first episode or second episode is a pretty good starting place, too. But, I mean, and also, too, it is the most important one to the de facto creators of the show. Like, Forward and DiTilio agree this is the best episode, which is funny because DiTilio has to admit that with him being like, I barely touched this one, but it's the best episode of the series. But Ian Weir, who is he? Well, I want to thank the Laser Comb video channel because they interviewed him, and I'm using them as the source on this. So look up their full interview with Ian Weir if you want. It's good on YouTube. But he calls himself the token Canadian for the series because... apparently, for tax reasons, Mainframe needed to employ at least one Canadian writer on the staff. It couldn't be all LA writers. Bob Forward did not want to be assigned a Canadian, and apparently Ian Weir in season 1, the Mainframe guys knew him, and he didn't really work much in animation. He mainly wrote for live action productions in Vancouver, but Mainframe people were like, no, this guy's good. He wrote on Reboot. Bob Forward was like, I don't want to have any fucking Canadian handed to me just for your tax credit. But then he really grew to like Ian Weir a lot and realized the guy actually could write, and they worked together really well. So Ian jokes that, like, yeah, I was the token Canadian, but he warmed up to me. And Weir's first episode was my favorite episode of the first season, the Starscream episode, which Weir was very clear in his interview of like, yeah, I had to do some Starscream research, but fortunately this user on the alt transformers whatever told me a lot of what I needed to know about Starscream.
That series does have a bit of a continuity error because Starscream does come back to life at the end of G1. He is revived by Unicron, so why is his spark now just traveling along the universe? I thought he was a ghost, but yeah.
Well, I feel bad for these writers stumbling into these expanded universes, because in 1996 there were websites, there weren't wikis though. You could not just type in Starscream and get like the 8,000 word thesis on him and all of his activities.
And some people would start websites to literally make stuff up.
Yeah,
like that, and like our pals on Gayest Episode Ever, when they did their Street Sharks episode recently, they mentioned how there was a now adult who came clean about it, but he was like, yeah, my teen years, I just made fake episode descriptions for Street Sharks that then became real because people didn't have access to every episode. So like, maybe there was this character or this one or that one.
Maybe there's multiple. There has to be multiple. There's some wiki out there that's like just like the made up shit wiki where it's just like, I wish this episode was created, and it comes up a lot of the times when I'm doing research, like, is this real? No, it's not. It's like the fan theory wiki or like the fanfic wiki or whatever. It's like, this Simpsons never existed.
Yeah, I've seen that shit. I've seen that shit before. I remember once typing in something like Oscar Langley, and then I go down, it's like the creation of Dialga. What?
Right. Yeah, see, and then on top of that too, like fanfic then becomes like, 20 years long and so dense that it's like it does need its own wiki to explain it, but it's not actually canon. So yeah, it all gets very complicated. But yeah, Ian Weir wrote for this, then pretty much went back to live action Canadian content. But he appreciates all the nice Transformers fans who love all the episodes he wrote over the multiple seasons. Also, Ian, in that interview, was very quick to be like, yes, I am the credited writer for this, but this is Bob Forward's episode. Because Bob Forward, when working on season 1 and his contract was up, he said, I will work on season 2, and he didn't want like a big extra pay, but he did want to get to storyboard and fully direct his own episode. And he got what he wanted, but Mainframe did not trust him to get to write the script for it before storyboarding it. So he wrote a very dense 6-page outline of what happens in the episode, and Ian Weir then wrote a script based on that, so he was like, yeah, I just followed the very obvious beats Bob put in there. But Weir says that a lot of the Hamlet and Shakespeare stuff in here, that was Ian Weir, not Bob Forward.
This is one director credit.
Yes,
ever.
Yeah. So this is the funny thing Bob Forward tells about this. So yeah, for him to do this, he moved up to Vancouver for 4 whole months to oversee this episode at Mainframe.
Wow.
So he storyboarded it, which he had done before, but he had never been a director on anything. And according to him in an aughts interview, he said that Mainframe had never done a full storyboard for an episode of a cartoon ever before, which he thought was insane because they're like, wait, you don't storyboard an animatic these? They're like, no, we have a scene. It gets assigned to a guy and the guy does it. It's up to that guy to figure it out. He had said that they had sometimes storyboarded like an important scene here or there, but it never fully storyboarded an episode. So Forward takes credit for teaching them the storyboarding animatic method, which they would continue to use from then on the show. And certainly there's very purposeful shots in here that I go like, okay, yes, Bob Forward storyboarded this with intent. This wasn't just what a guy came up with in the moment. And he also mentioned that because he storyboarded it, he said, too, one of the workflows at Mainframe before was you go in chronological scene order because it gets assigned like, all right, now that we got that scene done, move on to the next scene. But Forward was using more of what he had learned in the Burbank system, which is now that it's storyboarded, we know which are the hardest scenes, so let's do those first. But by operating out of order, they technically looked like they were behind schedule for months. But then when they got to the easy stuff at the end, Forward was like, we actually finished early, like days early on it, and then they had to sit at their desks and pretend to be working, because if they revealed to Mainframe that they were done early, they would have just been assigned to work on other episodes.
That's the lie of in-office work, pretending you're busy.
Yeah, but
because if you got time to lean, you've got time to animate.
I'm glad Bob Forward helped him out with being like, no, you earned extra days. You did a good job finishing early. You earned some extra days off. Well, those sitting at your desk. But yeah, so this was a dream for Bob Forward to storyboard and direct the full thing. And he said he really enjoyed, working with the Mainframe guys. And he thinks that he really helped them level up their animating abilities at the place, which I think, over time you can just tell, especially on this show and Reboot, each season they are better at telling a story than the one before it. Like season 1 Reboot is amateurish in a charming way, but there's some stuff that this is like a college project. But by the end of Reboot, they're doing a full musical number, and I think they really figured some shit out, and I bet Forward helped him with that. So yes, this was Bob Forward's big episode. Dinobot was his favorite character, and he wanted to immortalize Dinobot with a big heroic death.
The thing about Dinobot is this episode is very noteworthy for a lot of reasons, and the big one is that Dinobot was a very popular character, and it still is a very popular character. He is. I haven't looked at a lot of Transformers popularity polls, but I assume Dinobot is probably top 5 in most of them. The reason why is because he is the first real anti-hero that I can think of in the Transformers line.
Yeah, he's a bad boy who switches sides, who's like, can you really trust him? And he's a Predacon among the Maximals, and he's also he's a cool raptor, and raptors are so cool looking.
He's a raptor with a pistol.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah, he joined the Maximals out of necessity, not because he actually believed in their ideals or whatever.
He thought they just had a better chance of winning. And also he's got a code. He is a warrior.
Yes. In fact, they actually, the episode before this, or the one that sort of preludes this one, kind of goes into that, because he does go back to the Predacons and he gives them the golden disc back. But then he realizes, oh wait, no, this sucks. I don't actually like these guys.
That is Maximal No More, which is named after the classic Spider-Man issue of the Amazing Spider-Man 50 from 1966. Spider-Man No More, which shows you their nerdiness.
Of course, there's a reference to that.
Are these golden discs a reference to the things
they
we shot
are
in
the
space?
Voyager. They are the Voyager discs.
I thought so.
Yeah.
The backstory of this series, it's not that complicated. You just need to understand that the Voyager discs that were launched into space were found by an evil fascist robot named Megatron in the year 2005. And after his army lost, he's put a message on them telling his soldiers to, go back in time and change the future.
If only Carl Sagan had known, he would have changed the message.
It's very obvious these guys are Star Trek nerdos too, because Voyager, V'ger, it's that is a key component, and all this time travel bullshit. This is all very Star Trek.
I'm glad you brought that up, Henry, because I was going to mention in the history segment that I feel like Beast Wars is kind of the next generation to G1's the original classic Star Trek.
Yeah, I feel it. I mean, it's in the shadow of it. It references back to it, but it also wants to make its own future, and it is for syndication as well, just like Next Gen.
If that's true, we're getting a much worse reboot soon.
I mean, we already have.
I mean, I looked at a bit of that Netflix series, and I didn't. That was not David Kane as Megatron, is all I'll say.
No, one of the showrunners of it, George Kerstack, who is a true blue Transformers fan, and I do trust. I know he does a great job with it, but he cares.
I was referencing Picard, by the way.
Oh yes, Picard, awful.
Yeah,
yes,
we know.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if it was clear.
But yeah. So this episode, background you need to know is the Dinobot recently turned on them. gave the golden disc to Megatron, and that also that disc tells the future. By this point, they know they are in the past of the future they live in, and that they are on the Earth that was pivotal in the Autobots defeating the Decepticons and taking back Cybertron, which is an important bit of information here. And so Dinobot, already before this episode, is questioning fate versus free will.
Because... just like Berserk.
Yes. I mean, the question that he's positing in this ultimately is, okay, I know that I've gone back in time. Is this a closed time loop, or is this a Back to the Future style time loop? Which we learned that, yes, this is a Back to the Future style time loop, which, you know, that style of time travel is fun, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, honestly, Optimus Primal, the moment he heard that he's gone back in time, he should have just immediately thought of his grandfather at his wedding.
Yeah.
Well, someone does crush a bug in this episode.
Oh, yeah. The opening, though, is a very ambitious shot that I can totally see Bob Forward going like in the storyboarding, man, this is going to look so awesome. And Mainframe does their best on this budget, but it's like you start from the stars, pan down to the planet Earth, through the clouds, down into this windy valley, and then you see kind of a is this the Garden of Eden with the snake coming into the anthropoids, but it's early man being killed by a snake, actually. Like you just hear screams off screen, but doesn't look that great,
No.
But
this reminded me of a video game cutscene where certain things are hard to animate, so the monkey has a stick and it takes something invisible off the stick and eats it, because it's hard to animate a thing grabbing something. It's like when I play a modern game, if somebody hands somebody something, it's normally not even modeled, or they'll hand it to them off screen. Like they'll go like below the frame and hand them something. It's just like, well, it's hard to just model that, and why bother if we don't need to?
Give us a break, man.
Yeah.
You know who he handed the thing to the other guy.
And on an SDTV, you probably thought that monkey was eating something, but it's not there.
Yeah. And its skin tones look like fur on an SDTV, man. Though I will say, upscaled on a big TV, the shine on the robots, I like it.
Yeah.
I like that big shiny shine.
They're so chromy.
Yes. And also the first animal we see in the episode is a crow, which of course means impending death. As it's a bad omen for this episode.
The Earth contains 2 crows and 3 apes.
Yeah.
We must protect them all.
And yes, I will say, when I watched this as a teen, I did not realize the obvious intent of the next shot with Dinobot. He is going to commit harakiri. He is ritual suicide of a shamed warrior.
I was questioning that, and I thought, what is the purpose of this scene? It can't be a suicide, but that's what it is.
It is.
Okay, wow.
He turns his sword. He is looking at his sword. He turns it towards himself and is pointing it towards his stomach and is going to plunge it in.
This radical rotating sword.
Yeah, this badass super sword of like bones.
Wow,
that spin at different levels.
He was going to kill himself.
And that absolutely is the intent. Because apparently in UK airings, this bit got cut because they're like, hey, wait a minute. We know what you're doing here. This is suicide. You can't put this in
They have a special suicide room on their base.
Which, he's a robot, so you have to wonder, like, what that would actually do to him. Because, like, Transformers has always been kind of weirdly inconsistent about this. Like, even in this episode, Waspinator can get blown apart, head flying off, limbs flying off. But, Dinobot just has to be told, you're going to die if you keep doing this, just to let the audience know.
Yes. Well, that's why later in the episode, characters have to say, like, nope, not even for stasis lock. Sorry, shrug. Like, I know stasis lock has saved other people in similar situations like this, but Rhinox know for sure it wouldn't do it this time. So there you go.
It's a cutscene death.
Yes.
You can't escape it.
Yes.
But yeah, he considers it, but then throws his sword away, and then he sees a bunch of crows, which Dinobot knows, like, oh, he's probably going to die. Like, Dinobot he definitely regrets what he did in a couple episodes previous. So he's like, he's either going to die or make up for it. That's in his mind already. We get a little scene with Rhinox and Optimus. I do love how he says, hey, remember that transwarp cell explosion, which is the gigantic explosion they put in the opening to this season 2, and it's where Primal died briefly. So, yes, he remembers it, which Rhinox agrees. Stupid question.
If you're just wandering into this series, this conversation is crazy.
Yep, makes no sense at all.
These animal people talking about all of this, all of these newly invented nouns.
I love the idea that like this explosion was so big that it's traveling through time at an amount of time of like that time travel stuff that was even giving me a headache of like, okay, so this explosion happened now. And it's reverberating back in time. And in 10 days, your time, it will arrive in the future. And then that will cause them to travel back in time. It's like, so when the Cybertronians learn in 2 decacycles that they're back in the past, then why don't the Autobots then, or the future Cybertronians, just travel back in time to the start of the series? Why would they then show up now when they... I would bet in another episode maybe they explain this a little more, but I still was like, well, then wait, if they need to time travel, then they will just go back earlier, right?
It's weird Star Trek techno babble, yeah. Like, yeah, this is very much a heck, even the Shakespearean element of it is kind of Star Trek-y, now that I think about it. But yeah, there is a lot of weird Star Trek techno babble going on in this series.
But as the important part is, though, that they're going to need to up their defenses, which, honestly, guys, your defenses should be at maximum at all times. You're in a beast war right now.
I mean, what they're saying here is just to let the audience know that, you know, Megatron, he's running out of time himself because once Cybertron, anyway, is aware of where they are and what they're doing, they're going to come for him because he is a criminal.
Yes.
And one thing I do like about this series compared to, say, G1 is that in G1, Optimus Prime and his Autobots, they were just a military faction fighting against the Decepticons, who were also a military faction. In this series, Primal and his crew are explicitly stated to be an exploration crew. Like, they are doing the Enterprise. They are supposed to be like a Star Trek crew, and they're going after, like, yeah, it is a Star Trek episode now that I think about it. They're like they're on a quote-unquote alien planet fighting against a Klingon army or something like that.
Yeah. That would then make Dinobot Worf then, and that
Yeah, he kind of is the Worf of the series, right up until I'm sure there have been episodes where he's gotten, you know, beaten back just to show that enemy is strong, right?
Oh, especially after the Transmetals show up to be like, oh yeah, there's this Fusor is definitely tougher than Dinobot, this new Fusor. Though this episode shows that Dinobot is the strongest and coolest, but yes, as they're all arguing, and I love Rat Trap's like, if I was a betting robot, which I am, oh yeah.
He's the bender of the crew.
Yes. But then Dinobot arrives, and he's ready for some classic arguments with Rat Trap, but their relationship is soured in our first clip.
Well, if it ain't the irascible raptor. The base remains infested with vermin, I see. Yeah, it's funny, you know, not much changes around here. Except maybe the occasional allegiance. Found any golden discs lately? Passed them on to any Predacons? I don't need to explain my actions to you, Mouse. Yeah, that's right, you don't. Because they pretty much speak for themselves. Go ahead, Rodent. Push it one more inch. You know, I used to figure I had you pegged. Oh, yeah, he's a slag-spouting Saurian, but at least you know where he stands. Guess we live and learn.
Ooh. See, even Rat Trap's like, I'm tired of our tete-a-tetes. Like, he's like, push me one more time. And he shoves him. Like, that was just Rat Trap going like, I'm not scared of you. I'm sick of you. Screw you, buddy. You turned on us.
I like the panel repair business he's doing, where at the end he just smacks it with his wrench or whatever, and the thing just reappears.
I also much prefer Rat Trap's Transmetal design than his Season 1 design. Or just, again, that was one of my turnoffs in Season 1 as a first viewer of like, I'm just watching a rat talk. This sucks. Like, that was my first reaction to it. But yeah, again, remind yourself, this is Scott McNeil talking to himself in this exchange here. But then right after that, as he walks away, Dinobot basically has his own to be or not to be monologue here.
The rodent's words give off the stench of truth. Destiny has one great test in store for us all. Is mine already come? And have I failed it? A deed once done cannot be undone. But perhaps it may yet be mitigated.
Oh god, I love these soliloquies by dinosaur robots. They're great.
Yes. Oh, and man, the way he transforms as he talks, he then takes an elevator down, and it's just a raptor holding a laser gun running away as he says it. It's like,
yeah, it goes from like high culture to dinosaur with a gun.
Yes, yeah. Cocking is going.
The guy has a doofy little run too, which I found very, very funny.
Yes, yeah. The run cycle does what it does, and it certainly sometimes it feels like, well, I'm just watching an element dragged across the screen here. I'm not watching something running on the ground. But hey, look, it's television CGI in 1997. What more do you want out of them? They're doing the best they can. But yeah, his speech about destiny is like his destiny. He fears that if this future is set in stone, then he's already lost, so why bother? Like, that's what he's asking himself here, and he's heading off on his own. But yeah, then that's the first commercial break. When it comes back, we get some silly fun with Cheetor just flying around giving coded messages of like, oh, wasn't it like a crab and dino on the menu? And like, it just
crab legs and crabby.
Yeah.
Blue plate special jokes.
Right. Yeah. Which I guess Cybertron has blue plate specials in the future. Like, I guess they learned a lot from Spike Witwicky and his family in that, which isn't just Shia LaBeouf's character. His character's name is Spike Witwicky because that was his name in the G1 show as well. So
yeah, and you mentioned that Rat Trap was the bender of the series, and he does like cheap floozies. I already mentioned that.
It's true. Now he also is the guy who says, "Why am I going to risk my life for you? Screw you, buddy." He often has that feeling.
Although his most famous line is, of course, "Oh, we're all gonna die," which, yeah, buddy, we all feel that.
Yes. Oh, he says it quite a lot. Yeah. But yeah, I also like Cheetor's just flying style of just like this big silvery cheetah guy flying through the air going like, "Hey, look out." And he's just getting shot at by Rampage and Megatron.
Yeah, Cheetor in the first couple episodes I thought was very much the Poochie of the series. He very much felt like, okay, he's the young guy that all the kids are going to like. He's like the Sonic the Hedgehog, almost.
No, yeah, I never liked Cheetor. He's worse than Hot Rod. Hot Rod, fine, okay with. He's the impetuous young guy, but then he grows up. I feel like Cheetor never grew up enough. I don't know. There's some episodes where he has to mature a little bit, but he still is too young for my taste.
He does grow up, though, in Beast Machines.
Well, sure. Yes. But so then he gets chased off, shot away. Dinobot knows that Megatron's on the move and he's got some plans. So Dinobot he starts heading out as well. This is where we cut to Tarantulas, who catches an antelope in his robo spider webs, I guess, to kill and eat it. But
last scene, we did see Dinobot picking up a bit of web and sniffing it. So that does indicate that he's on Tarantulas' tail.
Ah, okay. Good. You're right.
I wasn't sure what he was picking up. It was like a blue fiber or something. But this opening with just the most bizarre sight, an antelope, wildebeest or whatever, caught in like a cyber web.
Yes.
Like, are these robots eating like mammals?
I think the idea, like Tarantulas mentions that he's like consumes energy. So I think the idea is that he consumes like their bioenergy, or like he does like a Matrix thing to them, like the movie The Matrix, where he consumes their like their brain energy almost.
I love how Dinobot later calls it a perversion, meaning like, man, it's even gross you're doing this with organic life. Like him saying perversion is very funny to me. But I like Tarantulas' design in general. It is a very creepy crawler, like purple and orange thing. Like it's a fun, very 90s gross character style. And
I think Tarantulas works as a better quote unquote turncoat for the Decepticons more than, say, Pterosaur or Starscream even, because the deal with Starscream is, yeah, I like Starscream in the original G1. I like his relationship with Megatron, But you do eventually have to address, okay, why doesn't Megatron just kill this guy? Why does he wait until the freaking movie and become Galvatron to do it finally? Tarantulas, meanwhile, he has his own agenda. He doesn't want to usurp Megatron. He just has his own, agenda that might conflict with his at times. And he also has a skill set that Megatron finds useful.
Megatron, at least, they make it clear why Megatron keeps around so many people that hate him, that he's like, well, I have use for you. Like, everybody's kind of ready to stab him in the back, including Rampage. Like, Rampage fucking hates him. But in G1, it's less of a question like, well, if you kill Starscream, you've got 80 other fucking Decepticons around. But if Megatron kills one of these guys, he's like, well, now it's 4-on-5. We're screwed. Like, I've already lost this battle.
Yeah.
But yes, as in a clever bit, Tarantulas thinks he has caught something in his web, but it's actually used as a way for Dinobot to trap Tarantulas, because Tarantulas goes to get the thing he caught, and then Dinobot pops up from under him and holds him hostage with a gun to his face, like you said, Bob. Crazy and for a kid's cartoon.
A hand around his throat.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are imitatable acts.
I also like how this dinosaur not only has a laser gun, but he has to cock the gun.
Yes.
It's like, what is this technology?
There's another, I think it was before this. Yeah. So when Dinobot transforms in and out of his beast mode later, right before this, he has to throw his gun in the air so he can catch it again in his other form, because there was no way to get it out of his hand in a way that he could transform through the rote transforming animation, which is a very funny fix they have for that in Mainframe. I like that a lot. But yes,
he must have practiced that a lot.
He's Dinobot loves practicing his weapon usage. That's But yeah, so Dinobot is got to interrogate a spider.
Sickening spider. Your base was betrayed by the stench of your perversions. The golden disc. I need to know what information it contains. I can't tell you that. I don't know. There's no more copies. Megatron won't risk a security breach again. Only the original disc, and he keeps it with him. Then I shall go to Megatron. Good luck catching up to him. He's miles away. You'll pay for this, lizard. Shut up and accelerate.
Speaking of perversions.
Yes, yeah. What? He's just sitting on top of him, making him drive at gunpoint. It's so I love the silliness of that. Of just I can't run very fast, but you're a transmetal fusor who can drive really quickly in your motorcycle form, so you can take me there. What a silly thing.
Also, Tarantulas does mention that, Megatron now has the golden disc that he just keeps on him, and because it did get stolen a few times, he just keeps it on his person all the time now, which that'll actually come back and bite him later.
Yeah, it's a great plot point too. He's like, no, it's them recognizing to viewers, we've written a lot of episodes where this shit got stolen from him, or that the information got taken because he made copies. So that's why, if you think it's stupid that Megatron would limit such a resource or not keep it as safe, this is why. He can't trust it anywhere else. He's getting kind of desperate at this point, Megatron is. We cut from that very fun, silly scene of Dinobot riding tarantulas to then the anthropoids reacting to a giant T-Rex robot on jetpacks flying over them. They're like, that.
Big laughs for me at this scene.
And also, I was thinking about this shows planning that you can only get through storyboarding. It's a great match cut of you see them driving off towards this mountain, and then it's a crossfade to the mountain in from where Megatron is, but it's the same shot. It's a really good match cut that they planned out there for that shot. And yes, as Megatron, he's got a lot of thoughts about this mountain.
Oh, the mountain. That will serve our purpose. Yes.
You brought us all this way to look at scenery?
I don't care for your tone, Rampage. Soon, very soon, I expect a visit from Cybertron.
I eagerly anticipate your imminent demise, then.
A likely outcome, I admit. But only if reality remains as it is.
Oh, man, that's great. I'm also thinking about how hard it is for them to animate acting on Megatron because his right hand is a tail. He can only act with his left hand like a hand. Like his right hand has to be like a long tail.
I will say one thing I really like about this series in terms of animation is I always appreciate how animated the characters are because, there have been other CGI Transformers series before this, and they're pretty bad, honestly, especially the ones that were animated in Japan just because they're CGI. They're just standing there. Their mouths are moving. There's like a lot of, very still poses, whereas here, they're moving their hands. They're moving their heads. They're tilting. They're like posing themselves. You can tell the animators are at least, trying to express the characters in some way.
Yeah. Lots of character comes through these. Even in him, I mean, also like David Kaye has to play so big. Like it's just so great. Especially him saying like, a likely outcome, I admit, but only if and I mean, just every yes. Like he the way he says yes is iconic yeses. And also, speaking of things they couldn't do, he's torturing him. This is torture happening on screen here.
Lots of hostages in this episode.
Yeah, yes. And yes, when he holds the golden disc in his hand, that is when you can see on the back of it says Sounds of Earth. So to make it clear, this is the exact golden record that got sent into space with Voyager. But I don't think you can actually play videos off of those.
No. It was not a laser disc.
No. But I also like how, Megatron's cannon thing, it can also just turn into like a video player. Like it can just play that. I also, speaking of great like acting shots, this was played just silently of Megatron telling Rampage, blow up this mountain, and Rampage points his cannon at him, and Megatron just kind of like looks at him smugly, like, "You're not gonna shoot me. Come on."
It's a nice James Bond perspective opening shot.
Yeah, that's a very really now expression.
Yeah, and then Mainframe, they do the best they can with a 97 TV budget of exploding a mountain, but the important thing is that once it's exploded, the future is changed as both Megatron and Dinobot learn.
Yes. Oh, my crazed crustacean. Do you realize what this means?
When reality alters, the future alters with it. With the golden disc, Megatron's power is limitless.
Now, according to this disc, the human race is destined to emerge from this valley. Humans. Thanks to their interference, the Autobots defeated the Decepticons, and thus it is the Maximals which rule us. But no longer. No. Destiny is about to undergo an improvement.
Oh man, that's great. Like him really like, oh my crazed crustacean. Like wonderful, ridiculous thing to say. And yeah, they do the Back to the Future photograph changing, except it is like, what a great extreme thing that they have to do. Like, well, what could we change the future from here? I guess we gotta blow up a mountain. That's the only thing that would be the same here and in the future. It's just a mountain is still there. And for Dinobot, his reaction there is like, oh, so the future isn't written. Fate, I have free will. It's not fated, and I can still do something. Meanwhile, then Megatron is just like, yeah, well, I see my answer here. We have to kill every human that could ever exist, and then we'll win. Like
eventually.
Yes. He has to do full genocide.
That is a super oh shit moment for the audience anyway, because kids watching at home, up until this point, it's just been, one group of robots fighting another group of robots. They're on a planet somewhere. Like, it's not necessarily attached to us, but this is where it goes, oh shit, but I'm a human.
Yes, yeah. It makes us certainly be more attached to Dinobot in the end, because he's like, oh, humanity exists because of Dinobot. He did it all.
You could tell this was made in the very secular Bill Clinton era, because there's no politics attached to, yes, we evolved from apes.
That's true.
It's just like a fact of life. There's no one's questioning. It's like, yeah, it's part of the plot because it's true.
And you know what? It's probably this Canadian production. Actually, now that you mentioned it, I'm shocked it shows you changing times too. Hasbro would never want to dip into creationism versus evolution in this.
The Allspark created humans too. Let's say that.
I mean, if you think about it, this show does introduce, raptors that Megatron had created he created some biological raptors to attack the humans. So in a way, young Earth creationists are right as well.
Wow, man. We can have it both ways. You're right.
Yes, we can have it both ways.
So Dinobot takes his eyes off the spider for just a second, but then it squashes him with his wonderful, helpful laser eyes, which have varying power ranges and abilities as an episode demands, I think. And at least in this episode, they make sense of like, well, he's losing power, so his laser eyes aren't as good over the course of the episode, but there's other times in episodes where I'm like, shoot your laser eyes, Dinobot. They'll save this problem right now.
You can kind of tell that his laser eyes were a very, okay, I'm sure that when they looked at the toy, they were like, okay, he doesn't have a ranged weapon. Shit. How do we have him fight, say, an enemy off screen? Laser eyes. Give him those.
Always works.
And then in a very toyetic move too, Dinobot takes battle damage, so it makes him a different toy. It's the battle damage Dinobot versus regular Dinobot.
I don't think I've seen battle damage Dinobot, unfortunately. I don't think that's a toy.
Sadly, I just use the naming of like, oh well, this is battle damage Spider-Man. He's got his clothes are torn some. Like it was battle damage Wolverine. That was the first time I think I had a battle damage toy. But yes, Dinobot. He sees what he must do. He has to stop them, but the rest of the Maximals are very far away. What is to be done in this next great monologue?
Destroy this valley and everything in it. The human race will never have existed.
As soon as we can. In the meantime, fall back and wait for us.
Negative. The question that once haunted my being has been answered. The future is not fixed. My choices are my own. And yet, how ironic that I now find I have no choice at all. I am a warrior. Let the battle be joined.
Hey, who am I talking to? What I love about this scene is I love like the war movie aesthetic where the one ape is dragging another ape to safety. Like, I'm not gonna let you die, brother. We're gonna get out of this.
Oh man, I also love it because I think unintentionally reminds me of Homer going like, I'll touch whatever I feel like. Just them going like, fuck all this. And very intentionally, he lands on a butterfly as a reference to the Ray Bradbury time travel story that created the concept of the butterfly effect.
Highbrow reference.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I also, Black Arachnia's machine gun arms are so cool. I just love, it's just muzzle flashes put on the end of fingers, but or legs, but I just love it.
The scene of him just standing on the cliff, the sun setting in the background behind him, his sword drawn, just looking out, that is probably one of the most iconic scenes in the entire series. Like right up there with Megatron shooting the original Prime in the face.
Yes. Them aboard that arc blasting him in the face.
I don't want to goof on the animation too much, but the fire in this is very cute. It's like I just cast the fire spell in Ocarina of Time. It's not much more advanced than that.
It's a red, orange, and yellow like blob that's just kind of flowing over it.
You know, once I know it can't be photorealistic, then I'm like, oh, well, this is abstract art, and I'm taking in this information. But I mean, the shot of him framed by the sun as the sun moves like that is very Bob Forward's direction really comes through there of like, this is the shot. This is the hero shot. This is also the way to tell it to an audience that isn't like a child. This character's dead. Like, he's accepted his death. He's going to die, but he's going to die fighting. This is the end. And just his like hero shot of the way the sun moves behind him and lights him. Like this is them trying as hard as they can. And the effort comes through. Like, it works in a great shot. I think it really does pay off. But yes, we come back from the commercial break. We've got the transmetal motorcycle rat trap driving around and saying like there won't be enough left of him to make a toaster, like his usual pessimistic self.
I do like that rat trap is showing, concern for Dinobot now, because like before, the last time we saw the two, they were left on a very sour note. So I do like both this, and I also like the scene where Dinobot shows concern for Cheetor, just because it does help endear us to their camaraderie as like friends almost.
Yeah. To show that he cares, like he also wants his friend to not die, and which is obviously it's 6-on-1. The odds aren't in his favor there. According to the wiki, apparently this is the last time Rhinox appears in his beast form. Like he's always in robot mode. The rest, or at the very least, runs in his beast form. I think I've read that, but I mean I could be wrong. But
Rhinox is sadly one of those characters that doesn't really get utilized. He's kind of just there to be like the science guy and the medical guy. Unfortunately, all stories kind of need someone to just explain things to characters. He just fills that role.
Wesley or Dr. Crusher, Beverly Crusher, she doesn't get to head out all that much on the missions either. She has to stay in the med lab, sick bay, and just let people know what's going on. Though also, like Rhinox, he should just let everybody get ahead of him. I think they're going slow because they're like, look, you in Rhino mode can only run so fast. The rest are way faster and can fly, or a motorcycle rat like Rat Trap Transmetal version. Though, man, I hate his beast form in the motorcycle mode for Rat Trap. One of my least favorite. He looks like he's inside out or like he's been skinned. Like it's just it's ugly to me. Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah. That color scheme is not really good for him. I think it looks a bit better in like lighter atmospheres because then he kind of has this more metallic look to him. But without the light shining on him, then yeah, he just kind of looks gross.
I think design-wise, for almost all the robots modes, there's a general problem, which is to make this work as a thing that you like move parts around on. It turns into body horror. You have to see like the inside of the bottom jaw of a rhino is the chest of Rhinox. Like it turns into some hideous looking stuff occasionally.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Yeah, but
I mean, Dinobot literally just has like a spine and ribs coming out of his back.
Yeah, and his tail becomes a helicopter. His tail like subdivides into 4 sections to be a helicopter. But yes, as the action is happening, Inferno, so the fight begins. Dinobot showing how cool he is. He jumps straight into action, fucking stabs Inferno in the stomach, just like rip just up. And then uses his body as a cover from being shot at.
A human shield.
Yeah.
And then uses his own gun to fire at the other robot.
Oh, and takes down Black Arachnia like nothing. Yeah. So boom, he's already made this from 6-on-1 to 3-on-1 already. Because that's how, 4-on-1 already. Just taking out these first 2 real quick.
I think how I justified this to myself as a kid, because at the time I was like you, Henry. I was a Mr. That's not in continuity a bit anyway. And I think how I justified myself as a kid is that, okay, Dinobot was always this cool, always this powerful, always this badass, but he was also an honorable warrior. So he was always like, okay, I'll let you, get the first strike in and then we fight. But, here he's just like, okay, I'm going to die. The stakes are too high. I'm going to just go all out, and I'm just not even going to play fair.
Well, and he is doing a sneak attack on like a war zone where it's chaos everywhere. So it totally makes sense that he can get, the drop on all of these guys while they're just like massacring ape people off screen. In the next bit, after he takes out Black Arachnia with Inferno's own blaster, and believe me, I had to write down the names of these characters. I didn't remember all of them, but
I did.
But as Dinobot then comes on towards Rampage and Waspinator, At least on my DVD, I noticed a little frame rate slowdown as he was flying over to them.
Yeah, I'm seeing that on the YouTube upload as well.
Yeah.
But in classic Waspinator style, doesn't even get a chance, gets like squished, stomped on by Dinobot, and then Dinobot shoves him up Rampage's cannon, and then he explodes. Which Waspinator survives that, but Dinobot will not survive the rest of this episode.
No, I'm pretty sure that when Waspinator was infected with Starscream's immortal spark, he just kind of got a bit of it rubbed off on him.
I like that. I like that viewing. But well, and speaking of view, another cool shot, I'd say almost as good as the sun behind him shot is. Dinobot beats those two guys. He looks up. What is he looking at? You follow his range of vision up to Megatron and Quickstrike looking down on him. And it's a really just dynamic shot. And this is when Megatron comments on the battle in his own unique way.
One lonely turncoat battling on against impossible odds. I'm almost touched. Fortunately, such moments pass quickly. Quickstrike, scrap him. Yeah! And just to tilt the odds even further.
But that's Megatron's type that he's like, oh, I can see how this is wonderfully dramatic. But anyway, it's time for me to cheat. I need hostages right now.
I bet Scott McNeil's at least one of these apes.
I think Gary Chalk's another of them. The ooh-ah-ah at the end of the episode sounds very chalky to me.
Yeah, Gary Chalk is definitely voicing a lot of these apes. I will say, Quickstrike was obviously introduced to replace Scorponok, and that's a good thing because Scorponok kind of sucked in the first season. And Quickstrike, he's a very fun Yosemite Sam type character. Just yeehaw, tarnation.
I love hearing a Vancouver character do a cowboy voice. He's so and yeah, he's
where are they from? Alberta?
Hey,
huh?
hey.
I also like Quickstrike.
That hit close to home for Devin.
Quickstrike is a Fusor. His right arm is a snake, and his left arm are like scorpion legs, kind of like cramped up together, like an impossible. How do you live like that? It's crazy, but it's such a funny, ridiculous vision. But yes, Quickstrike heads out, and Megatron rightly knows, well, this guy can't beat Dinobot. Like this goofy idiot, no way. Even a damaged Dinobot, he's gonna beat this guy. And they work really good on Dinobot's character model. Like it's getting more and more screwed up as the fight continues, and he's taking damage, and he's run out of guns. He ain't got no lasers. His laser eyes even aren't packing the same punches before. What can he do?
Warning, systems failing.
So, what's a warrior without weapons, eh?
A warrior still.
Warning, power reserves 96% depleted. Stasis lock commencing.
Override.
Repeat, power loss critical. Further expenditures will result in loss of spark. Stasis lock must commence.
Override!
Acknowledged.
You know, that CPU voice is like my Fitbit telling me it's time for bed. Time to get ready for bed.
I get the rumble that's like, hey,
have to beat Elden Ring.
You haven't hit your 250 steps an hour yet. Like, all right, I know. Like it's the little shake I get at 50 minutes into the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Stasis Lock was their way out of death in some previous episodes, which is why they need very explicitly to have him say, no, I'm not going into Stasis Lock. I got to beat Megatron.
It's just Stasis Lock.
Which, to be fair, you know, again, going back to the Transformers movie, yeah, why exactly did that kill Optimus and none of the other, you know, attacks or shoots through the chest that he got? The mortality of Autobots just doesn't make any sense in the first series, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, in the movie, Optimus Prime's successor gets torn to pieces by Galvatron and then put back together, and he is fine. And as a kid, I was thinking, go back to Earth and get Optimus. You can fix him. What the But I guess if the matrix of leadership leaves, then his spark left his body and all that. But
yeah.
Also, the quick strike looks like such a dweeb. Like, he goes like, I have a laser and all these weapons. What do you have? And Dinobot just jumps on him and punches him a couple times, just like dumps him on his head. Like, there, you suck, quick strike. Not so quick there, were you? Like, he jumps like 4 feet in front of him and he doesn't do anything. Like, I should, though, I mean, that's also what Megatron has the same problem later, where he's like, I have a gun and you're far away. I should just shoot you, but I'm really in shock at your jumping ability. But yes, then in comes as Dinobot is overriding this, and it's also very ambitious, like full camera turnaround on him as he does it. I mean, in a 3D model, it's not like doing a full camera turnaround in 2D, but still, it's impressive. But right after that, this is every word Megatron says here is so fucking funny to me, especially because he starts in T-Rex mode saying this for no reason.
This character design is just like the 90s in a nutshell. Just like this radical purple robot dinosaur. It's the most 90s creation ever.
Love it.
I'm sure that when they introduced Megatron's design for this show, a lot of fans online were like, what is this, Barney the dinosaur? I'm sure that was a lot of jokes back then.
Oh, sure.
I think they made him purple to take dinosaurs back.
My ears are burning. Yes. Why, Dinobot. What a delightful surprise. Let's see. Where are we now? I have the golden disc. I have the power to change the future. And the only remaining obstacle in my path to unimaginable glory is yourself. Exhausted. Damaged beyond recovery. Defeated.
Not just yet.
One more step, and it's raining bits of early anthropoid. Yes. Oh dear, how positively maximal of you. You were weakened before you started Dinobot. Weakened by compassion.
Oh, man.
It's going to be raining ape bits.
That's so great. Yes. Oh, dear. How positively bad. I mean, God. But my favorite bit is him saying, like, what do I have? And he's counting it off, but on his little T-Rex hands as he counts it off. It's so much funnier. Oh, so
yeah.
Good. And also, really clever bit, too. So he's in T-Rex form while doing that. Then it cuts to Dinobot, and then you hear Megatron transform off screen so he can be in his robot form when they cut back to him, which very, very smart for the animation team. Save him that trouble.
No matter what happens to this ape, it's scarred for life. It's never going to mate again. It's over for this guy.
Oh, God. And just him going like, my ears are burning. Just like, God, what a little sassy pants Megatron is.
Yeah. Saying his ears are burning as the forest is literally on fire around him.
It's also very funny, too, as he does all that challenging to Dinobot. Dinobot picks up a stick and kind of just wails on Megatron until Megatron is just like, all right. And just like gives him like a left cross and just knocks him down. He's like, yeah, you had your fun. And just him just laughing at him for having a stick. God. And also, he even just tells him, I'm a better toy than you, Dinobot. Like, you can't beat me. I'm the new model of toy. You're the old model of toy. You're screwed.
He's a transmetal, to which I say, good for him.
Yeah. But what can Dinobot do?
Oh, really, Dinobot? A stick? Against a transmetal? I think not.
Final warning. Power failing. Jeopardy extreme. Repeat. Extreme.
Oh, please. Face it, Dinobot. Your old technology. Obsolete. What can you possibly do?
Improvise.
Yeah, he just... I really love the animation. Smashes the stick down on top of a rock, which catches the rock inside of it, lifts up his new simple tool of a hammer. Megatron is so shocked at what he sees, he does not use his laser or kill the anthropoid and just gets bashed with a hammer. He's got to feel pretty stupid.
I wasn't too convinced that that could, just by plunging the stick down, you can form a stable rock hammer. Maybe it looked more convincing in the storyboard or whatever, but they tried.
They tried, yeah. And you see the anthropoid learns. We see that later. But
we need to teach these monkeys violence.
I feel like this is a good example of the toy manufacturers clearly did not have a hand in the storytelling of this series. And this episode's a good example of that, because not only does the older toy beat the newer toy, as Henry pointed out, but he beats him with just a stick and a rock. Like, that's not cool. If this was the toy manufacturers decrying the storytelling or writing the storytelling, then it'd be like, oh, Dinobot gets like a cool, awesome new sword or something. He transforms into the new Transmetal Dinobot to defeat him. But no. He like gets beaten and torn up, and pulls out a stick, beats the newer toy.
He uses an accessory that does not come with the character, you know? Yeah, that kid can't play that out at home. But man, it's so great. He uses the last bit of his strength to do it. He saves the anthropoid. In a way, Dinobot becomes his own kind of monolith from 2001 of advancing human society and saving it in that moment. But yeah, and also in a very lucky moment for Dinobot, when he jumps on Megatron, the golden disc just flies off of Megatron's body. Yeah. He's like, oh, whoops. Oh, jeez. There was no sign of the golden disc beforehand. It's not their most their best plotting, you know. It's they could have been a little bit.
It flew out of his inventory, I guess.
His space cavity.
I feel like if they had a bit more budget or a bit more technical ability, they might have, you know, maybe attached it to a part of his body somewhere, just so that when it hits him, it more believably falls off. But yeah.
But then here I am dissing their animation, but I think for the time, Dinobot catching the thing, using the last of his strength to shoot his eye lasers at a golden record, it exploding, and then it cuts to like 4 different angles and he falls down in slow motion. That is very good for what they could do at the time. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, the breaking animation on the golden disc, I'm sure that was like a prefab thing or something, like it was a pre-made animation, but it looks good.
Yeah. Oh, for what they could do then? Yeah, I mean, yeah. When we did a season 3 reboot with explosions, like those explosions looked a little better, but they had better tech then. But yeah, and I like, you know, Megatron also isn't truly, like, he didn't get super beaten by Dinobot, but Dinobot did get the disc off of him, so Megatron has to run off, and he's like, so close, like he's just so pissed. Like, really great acting.
Yeah, the one fatal flaw of Megatron just seems to be that he just has to be, you know, a super villain. He can never just be supervision and be like, okay, no, kill the monkey, kill him now, end humanity, that'll solve this all. No, he has to gloat. He has to hold a hostage. He has to do all the James Bond villain shit.
Yeah, it is his biggest weakness. That's in the first episode. It's right there of Dinobot quits because Dinobot tells Megatron, their shields are down, blow them up. And then Megatron says, where's the fun in that? And that's what pisses off Dinobot enough to be like, well, you're not a real warrior. Like, you're a torturing asshole. And I quit. But yeah, so the Maximals arrive just in time. Well, actually, far too late. Not just in time. Megatron turns tail. And again, good. I really like the reaction on Rat Trap's face. Like the shock of seeing, like, he knows Dinobot's finished. It's a really good shot of him. And yeah, Cheetor very helpfully puts out the wildfire like nothing. Like he drops some chemical agent on it and the fire's gone.
Was that a power he had? Could you fill that toy with water or something?
I would bet not.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. No.
And yes, Rhinox very helpfully tells the audience, no, he's definitely dead. Sorry, like this is just like at the end of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, how Bones has to show up to be like, no, he's definitely... He's already dead. Like, we can't save this guy. Oh, it's Spock's dead, buddy. And that's Bones' famous line, isn't it? He's dead, buddy. Right? That's
He did say buddy a lot.
But But yes, so we get Dinobot's final words here.
Well fought, my friend. You saved the valley. You saved the lives of those who live here, and of those who are still to come.
And then, there is nothing to regret. Like I said, you're just a blasted slag-spouting saurian, but it's nice to know where you stand. Upwind of you for preference, Vermin. Tell my tale to those who ask. Tell it truly, the ill deeds, along with the good, and let me be judged accordingly. The rest is silence.
Oh man, they have been paraphrasing Hamlet up to this point, but his final words are Hamlet's final words. The rest is silence.
You know, I definitely watched this when I was 14, and I was probably eating my toaster strudel after applying the icing and thinking like, wow, they killed the character. Pretty neat. I wonder how many 8-year-olds are watching at the same time just getting screwed up.
Yeah.
It's like, time for school, but Dinobot just died.
Dinobot died.
Get your math homework.
Billy, are you here? Billy, why are you crying? Dinobots!
And apparently behind the scenes, like Scott McNeil said, he at first thought like, well, okay, yeah, he's dead, but I'll be playing him again in like 3 episodes, right? He's like, no, he's dead. Like he stays dead. There's a sort of Frankenstein type character at the very end of the series they bring back as Dinobot 2, but it's not really Dinobot. His Spark leaves his body in a way that no other Spark ever leaves a body again in the series, but who cares? It's a fun vision of it flying out of his body into the sky to join the constellations in the Matrix and beyond. Yeah. I also like some of his final strength. He still can tell Rat Trap he's smelly. I like that. one last joke. Upwind of you for preference. What a funny way to say that too.
I do really like Rat Trap and Dinobot's relationship. And, watching Rat Trap hold his friend in his arms, telling him, man, I like where you stood, and just recontextualizing the words that he says to him at the start of the episode, it's legitimately kind of touching.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a very well done scene for something like this. But then you get to his funeral, and I did laugh at him, like they're rotating the model like he's in a character model viewer in a video game.
Yes, yeah.
For his really Viking funeral.
Yeah, which is also their way to say it to kids, like, no, seriously, this is permanent. Like we're not keeping his corpse around to be rebuilt or to have a new thing put in it. We are burning it up. It doesn't exist anymore. There is no more. I could see that was Bob Forward's way of saying, like, no, really, he's dead. Like, I got to show you the corpse being burnt up.
I was impressed that you see the character die, then you see his body being destroyed on the screen.
I will say one thing about this funeral scene. You can clearly tell that they were just reusing, like, a still image from one of the earlier seasons, because if you look down there at Rat Trap and Rhinox, Rat Trap is not in his transmetal form. That's a season 1 appearance.
That
is a big continuity error, actually.
Hey, they got it shipped on time. That's the important part. But yeah, and I also love, Silverbolt's only appearance in this episode is, other than like you see him in a group shot of them flying, is his reaction shot to his death. Like you get a little reaction shot from him, but he doesn't even, I don't think he says a word in this episode, Silverbolt. Rat Trap salutes and everybody joins in the saluting. It is, a powerful, they eked as much. I think Bob Forward came to this saying, like, I want to get as much emotion as possible out of these toys, and he did it. I think him and his team and and Ian Weir, they really, really pulled it off. But I have one last clip here. I got to hear Optimus's final eulogy.
He lived a warrior and died a hero. Let his spark join the Matrix, the greatest of Cybertron.
We're all saluting Dinobots.
I also love the flying Maximals kind of do like a Blue Angels kind of fly over, like boom, like a flyover for a state funeral kind of thing.
They're sending the flag to his widow.
Oh god, I'm just imagining what Dinobot's wife would be like.
I guess he's not coming home then. Typical.
It should just be a raptor with a bow on its head. That should be like
just Dinobot with eyelashes.
But then, yes, to show what Dinobot's true legacy is, we bookend the shot with of the episode. First, we saw the anthropoids being killed by a snake. Now they have learned from Dinobot, taken his weapon and used it to kill a snake, bash a snake in the head, and protect themselves. Early man has learned their lesson. It is exactly the Stanley Kubrick apes learning to smash with the bones moment. It's hey, we got Hamlet and Kubrick, rip off the best. That's what I say.
For your toy cartoon, for sure.
Your toy cartoon, yeah.
Yep. And that ape would lead his people away from the valley. They would travel north to the eastern continent, the Middle East particularly, and they would go on to found the great civilization, the Socialist Democratic Federated Republic of Carbomia.
Oh, great.
Okay. Yes, the made-up Carbomia of the G1 world.
That's what drove Casey Kasem away.
4,000 people and 10,000 camels.
Ugh, terrible. But hey, Beast Wars, it makes it look even better by comparison with that kind of comparatively open-minded in this world. But yeah, I mean, a really great episode of a surely dated in looks CGI show, but I think they were doing their best with all the tools they had. I think definitely Bob Forward in his direction and storyboarding leveled up the tools they had, and I think it was a growing experience for all of them. And you can see people learning as there were, not unlike a primitive ape man learning to use tools. They were learning as well to use their tools better by the end of this, and I think it was. There's a reason it is remembered as like probably the best Beast Wars episode, and the thing that made Dinobot a forever beloved character in the Transformers community.
Yeah, like I said earlier, this is the only Transformers thing to ever catch my eye, and only briefly, but it's way better than it should be. And as silly as it is, I love all of the very self-serious material and the great faux Shakespearean dialogue by a dinosaur robot. It's great. It's great stuff. I don't know if I'll go back and watch more, but it's a fun little time capsule and a great little piece of like early CGI animation for TV.
Yeah. This episode, it's still near and dear to my heart. I wish that I'd gone to see it unspoiled, that I could see Dinobot dying without having been told that he died. But you know what? This is still a great episode. Still a very, very fun series of my childhood. And probably one of the best animated things to come out of Canada. So yeah, that's great. One for us.
Yeah.
Good one for us.
I'd agree. Maybe the best animated product from Canada in 1997, I'd say.
And it was thanks to this series and its incredible popularity that 1997 and 1998, I would go on to become the biggest Transformers fan ever. Hey, what's this Pokemon thing?
Yeah, wow. That's what ruined it. That's what ruined it for you, man. Yeah, Pokemon stole all the thunder. It's also why, like, after Beast Machines, the next Transformer show is just a dubbed over anime, because that's where the money was going. That's but that's a story for another day. And I promise you, listeners, you'll get your real G1 history whenever we do the movie. That day shall come. But until then, and until all are one, I guess. Thank you, Devin, so much for picking this episode of Beast Wars.
Another great pick by Devin.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm hoping that my next pick is going to be great. I think I might actually do a poll on the Discord again.
People really like that, and I'll be voting for Escaflowne again if that's on there. That would be my.
I've got the Blu-rays.
I think it will be Escaflowne. It'll either be an episode of Escaflowne and an episode of Gurren Lagann. I think it'll be between those two.
I do enjoy both.
But do you have any other? Devin, usually you plug other people's cool stuff, or do you have any plugs in particular this time?
No, not today. No, I don't think I have much to plug anymore. at the moment.
But hey, you can find Devin on the Discord and tell him what you thought of this one too, and of course comment on the episode. We always like hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you so much, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
Yep. And I'll let you guys get back to your commercials then.
Thanks again to Devin for picking this episode and being a premium patron. If you want to be cool like Devin and support the show and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there and get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes over 100 miniseries episodes and monthly access to regular episodes of both Talking Futurama and Talk King of the Hill, our other retrospective podcasts. That's only behind the $5 paywall at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And there is a $10 level as well. When you sign up for that, you get access to all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one extremely long, very, very long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What? A Cartoon Movie podcast, where we cover an animated feature film super in depth, just like we do with this. You get to hear a little taste of it in the free feed every month on What a Cartoon, but if you want to hear the full thing, you got to go to that $10 level and get all the $5 things Bob just mentioned. You get to hear us talk about so many awesome films. Recent ones will include Toy Story 3, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Pinocchio, and South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. Those are just some great recent hits we've done, and there is an over 3 years worth back catalog of exclusive What a Cartoon Movies podcast there. I would say over 240 hours at this point, I think, and it's all at your fingertips, and a new one each month if you go to that $10 level. You can check that out at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
As for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts, it's a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And Henry, what about you?
Follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. That's where Henry Gilbert is tweeting up a storm. If you want to follow us both on Twitter, you should also follow the official Twitter account of this podcast network, which is at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod keeps you up to date whenever there's new podcasts on the free feed or on the Patreon, or if we got news going on in our lives. And if you want an easy to follow index of all 4 years plus of What a Cartoon podcasts that we have released, you can find all the free ones on TalkingSimpsonsPodcast.com.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you again next time for our extended free preview of our What a Cartoon Movie episode for June, and we will see you then.
What is it?
Remember that transwarp cell explosion? Okay, stupid question. Anyway, I've been calculating its path. The temporal wavefront is moving into the future at an accelerated rate. It'll reach Cybertron in approximately 2.218 decacycles. They're going to know where we are.
The question is, has Megatron made the same calculations?
Well, if I was a betting rodent, which I am, oh yeah,